Chapter 1888, Chapter 1888, Chapter 1888, Counterattack. Chapter 1888, Chapter 1888, Counterattack. Chief Wu's gaze was as sharp as a knife as he looked at Lu Ming and the rest. He said that as long as Lu Ming and the rest could hold on for a while, he would come and help them when they obtained the sword source. We just asked you to do something, but you're so wishy-washy and hesitant. We let you follow us and block the risks for you, but you can't just eat and drink for free. You have to do something valuable. Beside the Wu area, a burly man with a gloomy expression transmitted a message to them. Lu Ming sneered. Wu Qiu and the rest were blocking the risk for them? How laughable. They were clearly being used as bait, and if there was danger, they would attack. It was the same now. They were asked to resist while they seized the sword source. Who knew if they would run away after seizing the sword source? I'm not going anyway. If you want to fight, you can fight for it. I'm leaving the team. I'd rather risk my life in the sword to Malone. A brawny man shook his head and refused. He then wanted to leave. But at this moment, Chief Wu suddenly moved. He rose up and clawed at the strong man. The brawny man had never expected Wu Qiu to attack him. Even with his initial absolute saint cultivation, he couldn't use it. Furthermore, Wu Qiu was a perfected absolute saint. The difference was too great. He couldn't fight back at all. Wu Qiu's claw cracked the head of the strong man. The brawny man roared. His eyes were fixed on the scene, filled with anger and unwillingness. Die! Wu Qiu's power gushed out, and the man's head exploded like a watermelon. His soul was also destroyed in an instant. It's too late to leave now. Go and stop the other party, or you'll die. Chief Wu sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming and the rest coldly. Lu Ming's and Qiu Yue's eyes were gloomy while the rest of them were pale. On the other side, the dozen or so people also looked at them in surprise. Hee, we haven't even started the war, and there's already internal strife. One of them sneered. No matter what they're up to, get ready. We're going to take the sword source, and these people are going to die. One of the people with the strongest aura said coldly. Not only did they want the sword source, but they also wanted to annihilate Lu Ming and the rest. How could finding the source of the sword be faster than killing and snatching the treasure? At Lu Ming's side. All right, let's make our move. Lu Ming nodded in agreement. The others were helpless and could only nod. He'll tell you to start. You guys just attack and catch the other party off guard. Chief Wu transmitted his voice and then suddenly roared, kill, buzz, and NBSP whoosh. Lu Ming and the rest dashed towards the dozen people in a flash. However, before he could get far, Lu Ming's palm was like a knife, slashing down with all his might. A force as large as a mountain suddenly blasted towards the other party. You're looking for death. Kill them. The leader of the opposing party shouted angrily. More than a dozen people burst out and charged toward Lu Ming and the others. Retreat, run. Lu Ming shouted in a low voice. He and Qiu Yue turned around abruptly and rushed toward Chief Wu and the rest. The others were stunned for a moment, then immediately fled in other directions. How could they really go up and court death? You guys are looking for death. When Chief Wu saw that Lu Ming and the rest were running in the opposite direction and were charging towards them, he was instantly enraged. They're really using us as bait. What a joke. Lu Ming sneered and rushed towards Wu Qiu and the rest with Qiu Yue. The other party also rushed towards Wu Qiu and the rest. Little brat, I'll kill you first. A burly man at the Absolute Saint stage launched a fierce attack at Lu Ming. Get lost. Lu Ming shouted coldly and threw a punch. He crushed the other party's attack in a crushing manner and then collided with the other party's palm. Gotcha. The bones in the other party's hand were directly shattered. He retreated rapidly, revealing a look of disbelief. On the other hand, Lu Ming and Qiu Yue did not linger in the battle. They charged past and dashed into the distance. Then the other side's dozen or so people had already rushed over. All kinds of attacks poured towards Wu Qiu and the others. The two sides immediately started to fight. Damn it, you little bastards, I'll kill you all sooner or later. Kill? Chief Wu roared. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he glared at Lu Ming and the other man. Lu Ming was so bold. Not only did he want to escape, but he also led the other party to them. He should be hacked into pieces. Old man, save your own life first. Goodbye. Lu Ming laughed out loud. He and Qiu Yue did not stop and they flashed away at top speed. The dozen people saw that Lu Ming was just two young people and did not care at all. They only stared at Wu Chu and the rest and launched a fierce attack. Not long after, Lu Ming and Qiu Yue had left the battlefield and appeared tens of thousands of miles away. The two of them didn't have a fixed direction. Their goal was to find the astral treasure Lotus, but they didn't know where it would appear in the sword tomb, so they could only search randomly. The two of them randomly chose a direction and ran forward. Not long after, they discovered two sword sources. On the side, there were about 20 sword fiends guarding them. Since they had encountered each other, the two of them naturally would not give up. Although these sword fiends were strong with their combat strength, they would naturally not be too difficult. The two of them rushed toward the sword source as fast as lightning. Bush. The sword fiends had also discovered Lu Ming and his companion and charged at them. Their bodies were like divine swords, bursting with dazzling sword light as they slashed at the two. Qiu Yue waved her hand, and two curved blades, one hot and one cold, flew out. They continued to spin, and the hot and cold collided, erupting a destructive power that swept forward. A few sword fiends, regardless of whether they were at the eminent saint stage or the absolute saint stage, were instantly crushed into pieces by the destructive energy. With Qiu Yue's battle power, she could kill ordinary lower-tier absolute saints in an instant. Boom, boom. Lu Ming's attacks were more direct. He kept punching out with both fists, and an illusionary image of the prison-suppressing steel appeared and pressed down. All the sword chi that was suppressed by the prison-suppressing steel instantly collapsed. Even two absolute saints in the upper tier were killed instantly. The 20 or so sword fiends were cleared out by the two of them in a few breaths. They each grabbed a sword source and flew into the air, leaving the place. 10,000 miles later, in a valley, Lu Ming carefully sized up the sword source in his hand. From the outside, the sword source looked like a real combat sword. However, when Lu Ming's spiritual senses scanned it, he could clearly sense that it was formed by a type of sword energy. Swallow! Devouring power burst out from Lu Ming's palm. The sword source exploded under the devouring power and turned into a stream of energy that was devoured by Lu Ming. Lu Ming sensed it carefully. He realized that the energy of the sword source seemed to be formed by thousands of tiny sword gleams. When they were integrated into Lu Ming's saint energy, they were like countless sharp sword gleams that were tempering Lu Ming's saint energy, making it stronger. Lu Ming started to refine it. More than 2 hours later, Lu Ming had refined all the energy in the sword source. My saint energy has indeed become stronger and more condensed. Lu Ming pondered in his heart. Although the improvement was not big, it was only a small amount. However, this was only one sword source. If he had enough sword sources, his cultivation would definitely increase very quickly. It would be many times faster than normal cultivation. Chapter 1889, Chapter 1889, Chapter 1889, Mutation of the Sword Source. Chapter 1889, Chapter 1889 Mutation of the Sword Source. No wonder so many people entered the sword tomb in search of the source of the sword. Some people's cultivation had reached a bottleneck and it was difficult to improve. However, if they refined the sword source, they might be able to improve further. This was especially so for those who cultivated the sword. The sword source was of great help to them. Lu Ming waited for a while more. Qiu Yue had also finished her cultivation and was refining a sword source. Then, the two of them left the place and continued their search. In the process of looking for the astral treasure Lotus, it would be good to obtain some sword sources and improve his cultivation. Not long after, the two of them found another sword source. They put it away temporarily and did not refine it. The sword tomb was really huge and seemed to be boundless. Lu Ming and the rest wandered around for an entire day, but they could not see the end. As for the sword source, he had also obtained 4, so each of them had 2. Buzz. And NBSP whoosh. All of a sudden, a group of figures rushed out from a mountain valley in front of them and surrounded the two of them. There were a total of 8 people. They were either old or middle-aged men. Each of them was filled with killing intent and a strong aura. There were 5 great saints and 3 absolute saints. However, the strongest one was only in the absolute saint upper tier. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. So it's 2 little brats. One of them sneered, his cold gaze sweeping across Lu Ming and the other man. But this girl is really beautiful. I can enjoy her. A skinny middle-aged man, who was as thin as a bamboo pole, scanned Qiu Yue with a burning gaze. Brat, hand over all the treasures you have. The skinny man said coldly. On average, there would be people entering the sword tomb every few days. Therefore, there were countless people in the sword tomb. There were all kinds of people. There were even some people who were active in the sword tomb all year round. They specialized in killing and plundering other people's treasures and sword sources for cultivation. In the sword tomb, no matter what faction you were from, you would die in vain. No one would know who killed you or how you died. Obviously, these people in front of him were specialized in killing and plundering. They were specifically looking for those who were alone or had a small number of people. 111 give you 3 breaths to get lost. 3. Lu Ming said calmly. What? This kid told us to get lost. One didn't hear wrong, did I? Some people laughed out loud, unable to believe their ears. Judging from Lu Ming and Qiu Yue's age, how old could they be? What cultivation level and combat strength could they have at this age? Asking them to get lost was simply ridiculous. 2. Lu Ming continued to speak. His voice was even colder and filled with a cold, killing intent. The faces of the 8 people on the other side darkened. It seemed that Lu Ming was not joking. Could it be that Lu Ming had some kind of backing? However, from the looks of it, the Lu Ming duo was not even 30 years old. How could they be their match at such a young age? They had been active in the area near the Tai Sword Tomb for more than 100 years. During this period, they had met some young people, but they were no match for them at all. Many people had died at their hands. However, it was the first time they had seen someone as confident as Lu Ming. 1. Lu Ming slowly spat out the last word, his eyes filled with murderous intent. It seems that you don't want to leave. Then 111 fulfill your wish and let you be buried here with the thousands of battle swords. Lu Ming said coldly. Brat, you're talking big. I'd like to see what you're capable of. A great saint in the Great Perfection realm took a heavy step and rushed toward Lu Ming like a cannonball. His saint power and laws exploded and pressed down on Lu Ming like a giant beast. Bang! Lu Ming lifted his leg and kicked out. He moved later but reached first. His foot landed on the other party's dantian. The other party let out a blood-curdling screech as his body was sent flying thousands of meters away. He crashed into a mountain peak that was filled with combat swords, creating a huge pit on the mountain peak. As for himself, he was already exhaling more than inhaling. The remaining 7 people were stunned. A great saint in the Great Perfection realm was like a baby in Lu Ming's hands. He did not even have the strength to resist. Could it be that this person had the battle power of an absolute saint at such a young age? How was that possible? Bang! Lu Ming took a step forward. The aura of a great saint in the Great Circle was fully released. The powerful aura locked onto the other 7 people. He had already given the other party a chance. Since the other party did not grasp it, then he would just kill them all. Anyway, these people were not good people. Many people like Lu Ming and the rest had died in their hands. Qiu Yue stood at the side and did not make a move. She was very clear about Lu Ming's combat strength. She did not need to take action to deal with these people. Let's join forces and kill him. Die. The skinny man shouted. His aura burst forth and he charged at Lu Ming. At the same time, the other 6 people moved as well. Each of them released their aura and a terrifying attack was launched at Lu Ming. Lu Ming stood still. An absolute holy weapon sword appeared in his palm and he swept it out. A full moon-like sword light burst out and slashed in all directions, destroying all the attacks of the other party in an instant. Blood light burst forth and blood chi filled the air. The 7 figures pounced quickly, but they retreated even faster. The 7 figures flew 1,000 meters away and landed heavily on the ground. 6 of them were already dead and were killed by Lu Ming's swordlight. Only the skinny man still had a trace of life and was not dead yet. His eyes were wide open, filled with fear and disbelief. He was just a young man who was less than 30 years old, but he had the cultivation of the great sage accomplished realm. His combat power was even more terrifying. Even he, who had the cultivation of the great sage great mastery, could not withstand a blow. Could it be that the young people these days were all so terrifying? They had been in the sword tomb for over 100 years and had not gone out. Could it be that the outside world had changed? With endless questions, he took his last breath. Lu Ming waved his hand and the 8 people's storage rings appeared in his hand. With a sweep of his spiritual senses, he could see the contents of the storage rings at a glance. These people were really rich. The Ori rocks were piled up like a mountain. It could be seen that they had killed many people over the years. There were also about 10 sword sources in total. The sword source was a consumable item. It was already good enough to have 10 of them. Lu Ming gave half of them to Qiu Yue and left the place. In the next few days, they obtained a few more sword sources, but they still didn't see any trace of the astral treasure Lotus. It seemed like it wouldn't be easy to find the great sway treasure Lotus. He needed to be prepared for a long battle. There's a sword source there. Suddenly, they found a sword source in front of them. The 2 of them rushed toward it. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Buzz. The sword hummed as the sword source actually flew up by itself and whizzed towards the depths of the sword tomb. The sword source actually moved on its own? They didn't have much time to think. They stepped on the air and chased after the source of the sword. However, the speed of the sword source was astonishing. It was like a ray of light that disappeared in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming and the other man could not catch up with it. There's one there too. The 2 of them chased for a while before Qiu Yue suddenly pointed in another direction and exclaimed. Chapter 1890, Chapter 1890, Discovering the Grand Lunar Treasure Lotus? Chapter 1890, Discovering the Grand Lunar Treasure Lotus. In another direction, a few sword sources whizzed through the air and flew toward the depths of the sword tomb. Their direction was exactly the same as the sword source that Lu Ming and the others were chasing. What's going on? The 2 of them were puzzled. Why did the sword source fly on its own? It wouldn't have been a big deal if there was only one, but he had seen a few now. The 2 of them continued to chase for a while, getting deeper and deeper into the sword tomb. At this time, they saw more sword sources flying towards the sword tomb. Behind some sword sources, there were people chasing them. No, Qiu Yue, wait. Lu Ming stopped and frowned. There was definitely something strange going on in the depths of the sword tomb. Otherwise, how could so many sword sources fly in the same direction? Once an abnormality appeared in a place like this, it was either the birth of a rare treasure or the arrival of a crisis. Lu Ming, are we going to give chase or not? Qiu Yue asked. She also felt that something was wrong and continued to pursue, not knowing what she would face. Let's not go in too deep first. Let's see if we can find the astral treasure Lotus outside, Lu Ming said. Qiu Yue nodded. After that, the 2 of them didn't go any deeper. They started searching around the outer area. From time to time, they would see the sword source whistling past and flying toward the depths of the sword tomb. They would also see figures flying through the air in pursuit of the sword source. When Lu Ming and the rest were lucky, they could intercept 1 or 2 sword sources halfway. Lu Ming, look, that's... Suddenly, Qiu Yue exclaimed and pointed to a cliff in front of them. Lu Ming looked in that direction. On the broken cliff, there was a lotus flower. It was as white as jade and crystal clear. The strange thing was that the petals of the lotus were slender and sharp, like divine swords. The grand astral treasure Lotus. Lu Ming had seen it in the records of the Dian Elixir Palace and recognized it at a glance. Lu Ming was ecstatic. He had really worn out his iron shoes in a long search but found it without any effort. They had searched for a long time before, but they hadn't found any trace of the grand astral treasure Lotus. They hadn't expected to find it when they stopped chasing and searched the outer region. The grand astral treasure Lotus is extremely spiritual and can escape on its own. Qiu Yue, you stay here and block it. I'll go and take it down. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Qiu Yue before casting the Divine Breath spell and flying towards the astral treasure Lotus silently. When he was a certain distance away, dense runes appeared on Lu Ming's palm. He pressed his palm on the ground and the runes spread along the ground towards the astral treasure Lotus. He wanted to use the Array Dao laws to seal the grand astral treasure Lotus and prevent it from escaping. However, just as the Array Dao laws were about to approach the grand sun treasure Lotus, it moved. It turned into a white light, like a white sword light, and broke through the sky, flying into the depths of the sword tomb. Not good, we've been discovered. Qiu Yue, chase after him. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Qiu Yue. Then, he used his movement technique and chased after the astral treasure Lotus. Lu Ming's speed was extremely fast, and so was the astral treasure Lotus. It was no slower than the sword sources, and Lu Ming couldn't catch up to it at all. This grand astral treasure Lotus is too sharp. We were so careful, but we were still discovered. Lu Ming was speechless. He could only pursue with all his might. Qiu Yue followed closely behind Lu Ming. The direction that the astral treasure Lotus was running in was the same as the direction of the sword sources. Endless land flew under his feet. He chased for a few hours, but he still couldn't catch up to the grand astral treasure Lotus. At this moment, Lu Ming could not help but miss Bubbles. If he had Bubbles, with the speed of the space-time law and the sealing power, it would not be difficult to capture the astral treasure Lotus. After chasing for a while, Lu Ming's pupils suddenly shrank. The scene in front of him made his heart tremble. In front of him was an abyss. Above the abyss, countless sword sources gathered together, dancing continuously. The swords hummed continuously, and the sword Qi soared into the sky. There were simply too many of them. They were densely packed together, and it was impossible to tell how many sword sources there were. Around the abyss, there were many figures standing in the air. At a glance, there were no less than hundreds of people. These people surrounded the area, but they didn't take any action to seize the sword source. This was because the scene was too strange. Countless sword sources gathering in the sky above the abyss was unheard of. There must be something wrong with this abnormal situation, so no one acted rashly. Buzz. The grand astral treasure Lotus turned into a sword light and disappeared into the abyss. We're in trouble. Lu Ming's face was gloomy. He had finally found the grand astral treasure Lotus, but unfortunately, he hadn't been able to take it. He had only been able to watch as it escaped into the abyss. Lu Ming and Qiu Yue stood outside, sizing up the area in front of them. They did not act rashly. Many people looked at the endless source of swords with burning eyes and greed. With so many sword sources, if he refined them, how much would his cultivation improve? However, the situation was strange. Although everyone was greedy, they still maintained their rationality and restrained themselves. Brat, it's you! At this moment, an angry roar was heard. The sound of the air being torn apart could be heard, and a few figures flashed toward Lu Ming and the other man. So it's these few guys. Lu Ming looked in the direction of the voice, and a cold smile appeared at the corners of his lips. The person who flickered over was Wu Chu. At this moment, there were only two people left beside him. It was obvious that they had suffered heavy losses. Buzz and NBSP Whoosh. The three of them surrounded Lu Ming and Qiu Yue. Brat, you dare to betray us? They'll let you die a miserable death. Chief Wu glared at Lu Ming furiously, his killing intent extremely strong. Previously, because of Lu Ming, not only did they not get the sword source, but they also had an intense fight with the other party. In the end, many people died in the battle, and only the three of them managed to break through the siege. They naturally blamed everything on Lu Ming and the rest. If Lu Ming and the rest had followed his plan, would they have suffered such losses? Betray you? What a joke! I joined your team only to cooperate. And you used us as bait from the start. Do you think I would be so stupid as to throw my life away for you? Lu Ming smiled faintly with a strong sense of disdain. The weak should have the awareness of the weak. Wu Chu said coldly. Weaklings? Hee, you're already so old, but you're only at the absolute saint realm. Do you think you're very strong? Lu Ming was fearless. Strong or not, it's enough to kill you. Chu took a step forward, and his absolute saint in the great circle was unleashed. His withered claws grabbed at Lu Ming with a terrifying whistling sound. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He activated the prison-suppressing heaven technique and threw a punch. Bang! Lu Ming's fist collided with Chief Wu's claw. With a loud boom, the two of them were pushed back slightly. How is that possible? Wu Chu's eyes suddenly widened, filled with disbelief. How is it possible that Lu Ming could block his attack? It was unbelievable that a great saint in the Great Circle could block the attack of an absolute saint in the Great Circle. The others in the surroundings were also shocked. That's the law of chaos. He's a son of chaos. Someone exclaimed. Chapter 1891. Chapter 1891. Chapter 1891. Killing Chief Wu. Chapter 1891. Chapter 1891. Killing Chief Wu. Many people recognized Lu Ming's chaos law and exclaimed in shock. Unexpectedly, a son of chaos had appeared here. No wonder his combat strength was so terrifying. Chief Wu's heart trembled, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had actually provoked a son of chaos. But then, the killing intent in his eyes grew. Since he had already offended them, he would kill them to get rid of future trouble. Otherwise, he would be the one to die in the future. He was a decisive person. After making his decision, he immediately said, "Let's go and kill him together." He said to the other two. Buzz. Qiu Yue walked in the air with two curved blades floating around her. She said, "Lu Ming, leave these two to me." "All right." Lu Ming nodded. Although the other two people had high cultivation, one was a complete absolute saint and the other was a peak absolute saint, Qiu Yue would have no problem blocking them. Qiu Yue walked in the air, surrounded by the laws of yin and yang. She charged towards the two, and the two of them immediately began to fight. "Kill!" Lu Ming shouted and used the divine sword technique. His soul was like a sword, stabbing at his opponent. At the same time, Lu Ming extended his finger and pointed at the void. In the void, endless energy gathered and formed a huge finger that pressed down on Chief Wu. Wu Chu's pupils constricted and he felt a chill in his heart, as if he was facing a fatal crisis. Heavenly astral divine claw. Wu Chu roared and used all his strength to use a sacred art. A huge claw formed and grabbed at the chaos finger of tribulation. Boom. And NBSP, the massive claw, clashed with the primal chaos tribulation finger. The void trembled violently. In the next moment, Wu Chu's claw collapsed under his horrified eyes. The powerful force of the chaotic tribulation finger hit him, causing him to spit out blood and fall heavily to the ground. Wu Chu's battle power wasn't very strong among those in the great circle of the absolute saint realm. His divine power was only at 85%, and it was just ordinary nomological laws. How could it compare to the chaotic finger, which was at 80%? It was far too inferior. One move and Chief Wu was severely injured. The attack just now was Lu Ming's strongest attack. Chaos finger. Lu Ming pointed with his finger again and another chaos finger of tribulation was formed. Wu Chu revealed a look of despair as he tried to block. However, after this attack, his injuries became even more severe, and half of his body almost exploded. When facing ordinary martial artists, Lu Ming could completely cross a realm and kill his opponents. Boom, boom. Following that, Lu Ming continued to swing his fists. The terrifying fist force drowned out Area Wu. Wu Chu howled and let out an unwilling roar. He tried his best to resist, but gradually his voice became smaller and smaller until it disappeared. By the time Lu Ming stopped, Wu Chu had already disappeared. His body and soul had been destroyed, leaving only a storage ring on the ground. Lu Ming waved his hand and kept Wu Chu's storage ring. The two people who were fighting with Qiu Yue were terrified. The pinnacle absolute saint broke through Qiu Yue's attack and tried to escape. "Do you think you can escape?" Lu Ming said coldly. His body flickered and he caught up to the man in an instant. He pointed a finger and the chaotic finger of tribulation formed, crushing toward the man. The man screamed as his body was torn apart and he died on the spot. An absolute saint at the peak was killed by Lu Ming in an instant. The remaining absolute saint was also turned into ashes by Qiu Yue's destructive energy. The fact that the three experts had died so quickly at the hands of two young men made the expressions of the people nearby turn extremely grave. The Son of Chaos is truly astonishing. His battle prowess is heaven-defying. It's better not to provoke such a peerless genius. There's probably a terrifying force supporting him. Some people were discussing and looking at Lu Ming and Lin Feng with grave eyes. Lu Ming and Qiu Yue stood on one side, looking at the abyss. The others also focused their attention on the endless sword source. As time passed, more and more people gathered, causing many people's faces to turn gloomy. I don't care anymore. If we continue, there will be more and more people. By then, we won't be able to get many sword sources. I'd like to give it a try and see if there's anything strange about it. Finally, someone couldn't take it anymore. An old man stepped out and rushed toward the source of the sword. He saw that he was approaching the source of the sword, but there was nothing unusual. Catch! The elder reached out with his hand, which was formed by Saint Power, and grabbed at the sword source. The big hand grabbed down, but there was still nothing unusual. The old man grabbed more than a dozen sword sources and put them away. Haha. The old man was ecstatic. There was no danger at all. They had been overthinking. When the others saw that there was no danger, they all revealed greedy expressions and were about to take action to fight for the sword source. At this time, a terrifying sword light suddenly slashed out from the abyss below. Not good. The old man's expression changed drastically. With a wave of his hand, he laid down layers of defense in an attempt to resist. However, as the sword light slashed past, the old man's defense instantly collapsed. The sword light did not stop. With one slash, the old man screamed as his body was cut in half. His corpse fell into the abyss and disappeared. Everyone was shocked and stopped in their tracks. "There's someone in the abyss!" Someone exclaimed. Sure enough, at the bottom of the abyss, a man holding a long sword stepped out. It was a middle-aged man in a brocade robe. His aura was extremely shocking. He had reached the perfected absolute saint realm. It was obvious that this was the person who had slashed out with the sword. There was actually someone in the abyss? Could it be that the source of the sword was gathered because of this person? Kill! He roared, and sword chi whistled through the air as he charged toward the crowd. He's just a complete absolute saint. Let's kill him together. Someone roared and launched a counterattack. Then, someone else made a move. There were many experts who entered the sword tomb to explore. They came from all over the Yuan mountain. The worst of them were usually supreme saints. Many of them were absolute saints, and there was no lack of perfected absolute saints. 3 absolute saints in the Great Circle attacked and fought with the person who had walked out of the abyss. 3 versus 1. The person who walked out of the abyss was naturally no match, but this person seemed to be fearless of death. He attacked with all his might and did not care about defense. Something's wrong. This person doesn't seem to have any spiritual intelligence. He only knows how to attack. Lu Ming's gaze flickered. He realized that the person who walked out of the abyss had a blank look in his eyes. He was like a walking corpse. Not good. Someone has walked out of the abyss. Someone shouted. Everyone looked over and saw more figures appearing in the abyss. It wasn't just 1 or 2, but many. One by one, figures appeared, full of cold killing intent. As soon as they appeared, they attacked the crowd in all directions. That's the sect master of the Round Blade sect. I know him. I heard that he has been adventuring in the sword tomb. So he's here? That's Wind chasing sword Luo Xiang. He doesn't seem to recognize me at all. Exclamations rang out one after another. These people seemed to be the adventurers who had entered the sword tomb and were familiar with some of the people present. However, they seemed to have lost their minds and only knew how to kill. Chapter 1892, Chapter 1892, The People in the Abyss. Chapter 1892, The People in the Abyss. From the abyss, figures kept stepping out. Without a word, they charged at the crowd. In the end, more than 100 people stepped out. They were all strong and most of them were absolute saints. They were fearless and very difficult to deal with. The scene fell into chaos. These people are just walking corpses. Let's join forces and kill them. Someone shouted. There were at least 300 to 400 people who had come to this place, and they were all experts. They joined forces, several against one, and killed the people who had come out of the abyss. At that moment, Lu Ming saw a person and he was shocked. That was because Lu Ming actually knew one of them. The sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect. Lu Ming had never expected to see the sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect here. Back in the Azure region, they had been ambushed by evil spirit and had broken out of the encirclement together. The Life and Death Sword sect's main gate had brought Luo Xiang and successfully broken out of the encirclement, but who would have thought that they would appear in the Sword Tomb? Moreover, the sect leader was the same as those who had walked out of the abyss. He had completely lost his mind and his eyes were empty. All that was left was his cultivation and combat power. The Life-Death Sword sect leader's Life-Death Sword technique was extremely terrifying. With one strike, an absolute Saint Realm Master's forehead was pierced. Junior brother, you're looking for death. An old man roared and charged at the sect leader. This person was at the peak of the absolute Saint Realm. With one strike, he destroyed the sect leader's attack. The battle blade didn't stop and continued to attack the sect leader. Lu Ming took a step forward and threw a punch, sending the man's saber flying. What are you doing? This person is crazy and has no spiritual intelligence. That person shouted. I'll deal with it. Let's go, Lu Ming said indifferently. The absolute saint at the peak was very afraid of Lu Ming. Lai gritted his teeth and left, killing the other people who had walked out of the abyss. The sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect attacked again. The sword light pierced through the air, and it was extremely terrifying. Lu Ming could tell that the sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect was at the mastery of the absolute Saint Realm. Lu Ming threw a punch and destroyed the sword gleam of the Life and Death Sword sect leader. Senior, wake up. Lu Ming shouted. Il's voice rumbled like thunder, blasting into the head of the Life and Death Sword sect. Kill! The sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect did not seem to notice anything and continued to attack Lu Ming. Lu Ming blocked the other party's attack and shouted continuously. However, the other party did not react at all. Lu Ming, this person's soul seems to have been destroyed. Qiu Yue appeared beside Lu Ming and said, What's going on? Lu Ming furrowed his eyebrows tightly. The sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect used to have a good relationship with Dragon God Valley. They had fought together against an enemy. Lu Ming really did not want to see the sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect fall, but it was a pity that there was nothing he could do to reverse the situation. Lu Ming, is this someone you know? However, the other party has indeed fallen. If you can't bear it, you can give it to someone else. Qiu Yue said. Lu Ming nodded. Fai and Qiu Yue retreated at top speed and attacked the other people who walked out of the abyss. As for the sect leader, he continued to attack the others. However, there were more people outside. Soon, the sect leader was surrounded by a few masters. His body exploded and he fell into the abyss. Lu Ming sighed. He was the master of a sect in the Azure continent, an overlord of a region. After leaving the Azure continent, he had ended up in such a state. He had escaped from evil spirit, but he had ultimately fallen here. Lu Ming could not help but think of Luo Xiang, who was with the sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect. How was he? He was an upright person and also a terrifying heaven's favorite. He had stayed in the same realm and nurtured his sword soul for 15 years. No one knew what kind of achievements he would have in the future. Had he also fallen? Lu Ming's thoughts were running wild, but he did not stop his attacks. He killed 2 people who walked out of the abyss in succession. Those who walked out of the abyss were few in number and were eventually surrounded and annihilated one by one. However, these people were very strong and fearless. The people outside had also paid a heavy price. About 100 people were killed, and their blood dyed the ground red. When the last person who walked out of the abyss was killed, everyone's eyes turned back to the abyss. Was there anyone else in the abyss? Why did those people look like zombies? Were they being controlled? Many people's eyes flickered with various thoughts. However, No one dared to go up and seize the sword source. Bush, bush, bush. At this moment, the sword sources gathered together and flew down toward the abyss. In less than a minute, the endless sword source flew into the abyss and disappeared. Everyone looked at each other. All the sword sources had flown into the abyss. What should he do? Should he go down? However, the abyss was extremely mysterious and terrifying. Earlier, more than 100 experts had walked out of the abyss. All of them had lost their spiritual intelligence and were like walking corpses, only knowing how to kill. What was in the abyss? Was there a treasure that attracted the sword source, or was there some kind of danger? Everyone looked at each other, all thinking that the others would go down first to explore the way, and if there was danger, they could retreat in time. Everyone was thinking the same thing, so who would take the lead? After a moment of silence, someone finally spoke. Everyone, we can't go on like this. Why don't we join forces and go down to explore? A purple-robed elder suggested. Alright, I agree. Rather than this stalemate, why don't we join forces and explore? A tall and sturdy man said, But if you want to go down, take a few steps forward. If you don't want to go down, retreat. We won't force you. The purple-robed elder spoke and stepped forward first. Then, the brawny man also stepped forward. Some people muttered to themselves for a moment before stepping forward as well. The endless sword source was an irresistible temptation. If he could get a part of it, his cultivation would definitely improve quickly. This was especially so for those who cultivated the sword. Not only could they increase their cultivation, but they could also temper their sword techniques and increase their comprehension of the laws of Rhe sword. Even if it was dangerous, it was worth it. Lu Ming and Qiu Yue also stepped forward. The astral treasure Lotus had escaped into the abyss. No matter what, they had to go down and find it. Otherwise, they didn't know when they would be able to find it. However, not everyone wanted to go down and take a look. Some of them shook their heads and took a few steps back. The abyss was too strange, and no one could predict what dangers there would be. If they lost their lives, what was the use of getting the source of the sword? However, the number of people who retreated was small. More people planned to go down and explore. Everyone, those who don't want to go down, let them stay here forever. A cold glint flashed in the purple-robed elder's eyes as he sent a message to Lu Ming and the rest. Why? Someone's eyes flashed as he asked. These people who don't want to go down have unfathomable motives. Most likely, they want us to go down first to explore the way. Who knows if they will go down after we go down? Flo, can there be such a good deal in this world? Also, some people are probably waiting for us to come out before launching a sneak attack on us. If we get injured, we'll be killed by these rats. That's why we can't let these people live. The purple-robed elder continued to transmit his voice. Chapter 1893. Chapter 1893, Meeting Luo Xiang Again, the Strange Sword Fiend. Chapter 1893, Meeting Luo Xiang Again, the Strange Sword Fiend. The purple-robed elder's words made many people's eyes flash. That's right. We can't let these people live. If we let them live, they might bring trouble to us. The burly man also said coldly. I also think we can't keep them. Then kill them. The others spoke up one after another. Of course, they were all using voice transmission, so those who chose to stay could not hear them at all. Good. Then let's kill them first, then go down and surround them. Don't let them escape. The purple-robed elder spoke. In an instant, everyone's figures flashed and surrounded those who chose to stay. Lu Ming and Qiu Yue did not move. Although the world of martial arts was cruel and the strong preyed on the weak, Lu Ming and Qiu Yue had their own principles. These people had no enmity with them and they would not kill them for this reason. Of course, they would not stop him. What are you guys doing? The expressions of those who stayed behind changed drastically. Kill! The purple-robed old man shouted coldly. They made their move. A dazzling and deadly light burst out, killing those who stayed behind. Those who chose to stay were already in the minority. How could they resist? They were instantly killed one by one. You guys? He's too vicious. Someone howled, extremely unwilling. Laughable. The brawny man sneered and killed the man with a slash. In just a few minutes, those who stayed behind were all killed. With a single thought, those people would face death. Alright, there's nothing to worry about now. Let's go down, the purple-robed elder said. After that, everyone got into formation and carefully flew toward the abyss. Looking down from above the abyss, it was pitch black and nothing could be seen. Surrender! The purple-robed elder's cultivation was unfathomable. He was an emperor-to-be expert, so everyone naturally took him as their leader. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone flew down the abyss. The abyss was very deep, and they only reached the bottom after descending for tens of thousands of feet. As soon as he landed, Lu Ming looked in one direction in shock. In that direction, there was a huge sword stuck in the ground. It was at least 100 meters tall and extremely huge. Under the huge sword, a figure sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. No aura could be sensed from his body. Luo Xiang. Lu Ming muttered. Luo Xiang was indeed under the abyss. However, Luo Xiang didn't fight his way out of the abyss like his master, the sect leader of the Life and Death Sword sect. Instead, he sat under the giant sword, and no one could sense his aura. Could it be that he had already fallen? Lu Ming could not help but feel that it was a pity. Although he didn't have much contact with Luo Xiang, he could feel that this person was an open and above-board person. He was born for the sword and was a true swordsman. Then, Lu Ming's gaze turned to another direction. There, endless sword sources gathered and circled. Under the endless sword source, a figure was staring at Lu Ming and the others with sharp eyes. This is a sword fiend. Lu Ming's heart trembled. The figure under the endless sword source was clearly a sword fiend. However, this sword fiend was completely different from the sword fiends that Lu Ming had seen before. This sword fiend was not only more solid in form, but its eyes also shone with wisdom. This sword fiend had intelligence. The others also noticed the sword fiend and their expressions turned grave. Lu Ming, the grand astral treasure Lotus. Qiu Yue nudged Lu Ming and said softly. Lu Ming followed Qiu Yue's gaze and realized that the grand lunar treasure Lotus was rooted on a pile of bones. The lotus petals swayed gently, rippling with sword chi. You're all here. Just in time, let's sacrifice you to my sword. The sword fiend let out an ear-piercing laugh. How is that possible? Didn't the sword fiend not have any intelligence? This sword fiend, how did it gain sentience? Could it be that the people who walked out of the abyss before were all controlled by him? The gathering of the sword source is also because of him? Many people's expressions changed and they were shocked. Some people had been in the Tai sword tomb for many years, but they had never heard that the sword fiend could give birth to a spirit. They had never seen the source of the sword gather here. Today, one will use your blood as a sacrifice to the sword. Condense. Jiansha shouted and raised his palm. The endless sword source gathered towards Jiansha's arm and formed a huge combat sword. At the same time, from above the abyss, wisps of blood chi gathered on the sword fiend, making his body more solid. The blood chi was the blood of those who had died in battle above the abyss. Could it be that the reason why those people had come out and fought with them was because they needed blood? Many people's expressions turned ugly when they thought of this. Boom. A terrifying aura burst out from Jiansha's body. This aura was extremely powerful and superior. It was even more powerful and pure than the aura of the purple-robed elder, an emperor-to-be. That was emperor pressure. Everyone's expression changed. A pure emperor pressure. This was an emperor-ranked powerhouse. There was actually a monarch-level expert hiding under the abyss. Many people's hearts trembled, and they felt a chill all over their bodies. Let's go! Someone roared and rose into the air, rushing toward the top of the abyss, trying to escape. Against an emperor-level expert, no matter how many people they had, it was useless. Only death awaited them. Hee, one told you, I'll use your blood as a sacrifice to my sword to help me reach the final step. All of you stay. Jiansha laughed coldly. He raised the giant sword that was formed by endless sword source high up in the air. Instantly, endless sword light condensed in the sky. These sword lights were like battle swords, with the tip pointing down and showing off its sharpness, blocking all directions. Kill! The sword fiend let out another cold cry, and endless sword light, covering the sky and earth, stabbed down towards everyone. Instantly, a series of screams rang out. One figure after another was either pierced by the sword light or cut in half. Their souls were annihilated and they died here. After these people died, their blood gathered towards the sword fiend, making his aura even stronger. The yin-yang wheel. Qiu Yue shouted as a wheel appeared on her forehead. This wheel emitted a cold qi on one side and a hot qi on the other. The two combined and triggered a terrifying pressure. It was the emperor's might, and it was obvious that this was a monarch weapon. The yin-yang wheel hovered above Qiu Yue's head and cast a light screen that enveloped Lu Ming and Qiu Yue. Thump! Boom! The sword radiances struck the light screen cast by the yin-yang wheel. The light screen shook violently and rippled, but it still managed to block the attack of the sword radiances. There was a flash of light between Lu Ming's brows. He had wanted to use the Tai Chi formation disc to block it, but after seeing that Qiu Yue could block it, he did not use it. Leaving some trump cards to catch people off guard might be of great use at a critical moment. After a wave of sword light, there were only 20 people left. Chapter 1894, Chapter 1894, Chapter 1894, Obtaining the Grand Astral Treasure Lotus? Chapter 1894, Chapter 1894 Obtaining the Grand Astral Treasure Lotus. When they came down, there were hundreds of people, but all of a sudden, there were only about 20 people left. The weakest of the remaining 20-odd people was at the perfected Absolute Saint Realm. In other words, those below the perfected Absolute Saint Realm had all been killed by that wave of attacks. Even many of the Absolute Saints in the Great Circle who had survived were injured. What a terrifying attack! Normal Absolute Saints wouldn't be able to fight back. A monarch weapon! The sword fiend's cold gaze swept across Qiu Yue and Lu Ming. Run, run, run! At this moment, the remaining people were extremely frightened and madly rushed to the sky above the abyss. Lu Ming and Qiu Yue also rushed up from another direction. There were more than 20 rainbow lights, and their speed was astonishing. But the sword fiend's speed was faster. He took a step forward and appeared above everyone. Endless sword light began to gather. This time, the endless sword lights merged together, leaving only 20 sword lights. However, the power of each sword light increased dramatically, giving people a terrifying feeling. I'll use your blood as an offering to my sword. Kill. The sword fiend bellowed and more than 20 sword lights charged toward Lu Ming and the rest. On average, each person had one sword light. Everyone used all their strength to block it, but some of them couldn't even block it. As the sword light flashed, all their attacks and defenses collapsed in an instant. Another dozen or so people were killed and left here forever. These people were all experts in the Great Circle of the Absolute Saint Realm. Only a small number of Absolute Saints in the perfected Absolute Saint stage were able to block the attack with their secret treasures, but they were still heavily injured. As for Qiu Yue, she tried her best to control the yin-yang wheel to block it. Although she managed to block it, Qiu Yue's body trembled and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Other than them, there were two other people who had blocked the sword light and were unscathed. One of them was the purple-robed old man from before. He was in the Emperor-to-be realm and was surrounded by the River of Laws, which destroyed the sword light in one fell swoop. The other person was a woman in a palace dress. She also had the cultivation of an Emperor-to-be and defeated the sword light. The two Emperors-to-be broke the sword light and rushed upward. Even an Emperor-to-be has to die. Jian Sha sneered and waved the giant sword in his hand. Endless sword light appeared again, then converged into several sword lights and slashed at the two Emperor-to-be. Break! The two Emperors-to-be shouted, and the River of Laws formed a terrible attack, clashing with the sword light. But this time, the sword light was obviously stronger. The two Emperors-to-be trembled and were blown down. This sword fiend hasn't completely become a divine emperor yet. We still have a chance. Let's work together and charge out. If we split up, we'll all die. The purple-robed elder roared. A purple river of laws surrounded him, and he turned into a purple light, rushing to the woman's side. At the same time, The remaining absolute saints in the Great Circle also charged toward them. Qiu Yue was about to go over but was stopped by Lu Ming. "Let's not go there. We're going to get the grand lunar treasure Lotus." Lu Ming secretly sent a message to Qiu Yue. They did not rush toward the purple-robed elder and the others. Instead, they rushed toward the astral treasure Lotus. The purple-robed elder and the others gathered together and charged upwards. The sword fiend cast a cold glance at Lu Ming and the other man, then ignored them. He looked at the purple-robed elder and the rest and sneered, "Although I'm close to becoming a saint emperor, killing you is more than enough. After killing you, 111 use your blood to help me become a saint emperor. Condense." As the sword fiend said the last word, endless sword light gathered and finally turned into 3 huge sword lights. They slashed at the purple-robed elder and the others from 3 directions. Boom, boom, boom. There were 3 terrifying attacks, and endless sword chi filled the air. It left many hideous sword marks in the valley. Several screams were heard. The remaining absolute saints in the Great Circle were killed by the terrifying power. Only 2 emperors-to-be survived. However, the faces of the 2 emperors-to-be were pale. "Why aren't you 2 joining forces? Do you want to die here together?" The purple-robed elder roared, clearly directed at Lu Ming and the other man. However, Lu Ming did not seem to hear her. He pulled Qiu Yue and rushed towards the astral treasure Lotus. He felt a terrifying danger from the sword fiend. He had a feeling that even if he joined forces with the purple-robed elder and the others, they would not be able to break out. He could only rush out by using a strange move. "Damn it!" The purple-robed elder roared and joined hands with the woman. The 2 rivers of laws turned into a terrifying attack and blasted upwards. Jianghu took a step forward and the 3 rays of sword light formed again, slashing towards the purple-robed elder and the other man. The purple-robed elder and the woman's bodies trembled as they were forced to retreat. They were completely at a disadvantage. At this moment, Lu Ming was already approaching the astral treasure Lotus. The sword fiend's eyes narrowed, and the huge sword in his hand, which was condensed from the sword source, shook slightly. Dozens of terrifying sword lights shot toward Lu Ming and the other man. Tai Chi formation plate. Lu Ming's mind moved and the space between his brows glowed. The Tai Chi formation disc appeared and expanded rapidly, shielding the 2 of them. Buzz, buzz, and NBSP whoosh. The sword light landed on the Tai Chi formation disc, causing it to shake violently and send out sparks. However, the Tai Chi formation disc was an emperor-level treasure. It was so strong that not a single mark was left on it. Lu Ming and Qiu Yue continued to rush towards the grand lunar treasure Lotus. The petals of the astral treasure Lotus rippled. It seemed to have sensed Lu Ming and the other man and was about to escape. "Seal, go," Lu Ming said. Then, dense runes suddenly appeared on the ground around the astral treasure Lotus. These runes formed a sealing force that was like a huge net that enveloped the grand astral treasure Lotus. The grand astral treasure Lotus released a dazzling sword chi that rushed left and right, trying to rush out, but it was blocked by the seal. With his previous experience, Lu Ming would not hold back. In the process of the attack, Lu Ming had secretly penetrated the array Dao laws into the ground and reached the vicinity of the grand astral treasure Lotus. Then, it suddenly attacked and sealed the grand lunar treasure Lotus. Lu Ming and Qiu Yue rushed past him. Lu Ming grabbed the grand astral treasure Lotus and placed it into the mountain and river diagram. "Let's go!" Lu Ming and Qiu Yue transformed into 2 beams of light and shot into the sky above the abyss from another direction. "If you want to leave, then all of you stay," Jianghu coldly spoke. Today, he definitely couldn't allow anyone to leave. If someone left and news of him was spread out, it would attract true emperor-ranked experts. If that happened, he would be finished. He waved the huge sword in his hand and beams of sword light appeared above Lu Ming and Qiu Yue's heads, slashing down at them. Lu Ming blocked the attack with the Tai Chi formation disc. All the sword gleams struck the Tai Chi formation disc, causing it to vibrate. Lu Ming and Qiu Yue's figures were also blocked. "Kill!" The sword fiend blocked Lu Ming and Qiu Yue with his sword gleam and focused more of his energy on the purple-robed elder and the woman in the palatial dress. The three huge sword lights that were attacking the purple-robed elder and the woman in the palace dress gathered together again to form an even bigger sword light. The aura that this sword light gave off was even more terrifying. Chapter 1895, Chapter 1895, Chapter 1895, Danger. Chapter 1895, Chapter 1895 Danger Buzz. Even with the purple-robed elder and the woman's cultivation, they almost couldn't block the sword light. The river of laws was almost pierced through, and blood spurted out of their mouths. However, to their despair, the giant sword slashed down again, and they could only try their best to block it. Qiu Yue, you enter the mountain and river diagram. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Qiu Yue. The mountain and river diagram flew out and kept Qiu Yue in it. Lu Ming's glabella glowed again and he took out the Dian elixir furnace. Lu Ming rushed into the furnace and controlled it to fly upwards. The Dian elixir furnace was the most important treasure of the Dian elixir palace. No one knew what level it was, but it was definitely above the Tai Chi formation disc. Clang, clang, clang. The sword radiance continued to slash at the Dian elixir furnace, causing it to tremble. However, it was still slowly moving upwards. This was Lu Ming's plan. He would let the two emperor-to-be, the purple-robed elder and the woman in palace attire, hold off the sword fiend while he rushed out with the Dian elixir furnace. If he was with the purple-robed elder and the others, they would not be able to escape from the sword fiend's full-force attack. Jian Sha's eyes also changed slightly. He did not expect Lu Ming to have so many treasures on him. Each one was stronger than the last. If this went on, he would not have time to deal with Lu Ming. Lu Ming might really be able to get out of here. Don't even think about it. All of you will stay here today. These treasures are all mine. The sword fiend growled and his body was filled with a bloody light. The blood light was the blood light he had just absorbed. It flowed out of his body like water, looking extremely strange. Then, the blood light flowed to the giant sword in his hand and burned like a flame. The giant sword in his hand seemed to have turned into a terrifying sword of slaughter. Return to your position. The huge sword light that had attacked the purple-robed elder and the others also flew into the huge sword and fused together, making the aura of the huge sword in the sword fiend's hand even more terrifying. Buzz. The sword fiend stepped in the air and the giant sword in his hand slashed down at the purple-robed elder and the woman in the palace dress. The terrifying sword power covered the sky and earth. It was so terrifying that even the space trembled as if it had the power to split the sky and earth. Not good. The purple-robed elder and the woman's expressions changed dramatically. The power of this sword had exceeded the scope of an emperor-to-be and was infinitely close to the attack of a martial emperor. They were going to die from this attack. No, I don't want to die. The purple-robed old man roared in his heart, and his eyes emitted a ferocious look. He suddenly struck out and hit the woman in the palace dress with his palm, sending her flying into the sky towards the sword fiend. Despicable! The woman in the court dress roared, her eyes filled with endless anger and fear. But at this time, in order to save her life, she could only use all her strength to resist. She had used all of her techniques, even her saint weapons, but all of them were in vain against the sword fiend. The giant sword slashed down, and all of the woman's defenses, as well as her own body, were turned into ashes. This kid, after the purple-robed elder sent the woman flying with one palm, he rushed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming kept taking out his monarch weapon. If he could get his hands on Lu Ming's monarch weapon, his chances of escaping would be greatly increased. However, Jian Sha would not let him do as he wished. You want to leave? After the sword fiend killed the woman, his body flashed and he appeared above the purple-robed elder. The purple-robed elder's face was as white as snow. No, he roared, but as the sword light slashed down, he followed in the footsteps of the woman in palace clothing and turned into ashes. He pushed the woman towards the sword fiend, but he himself only lived for a few more breaths. Not good. In the Dian elixir furnace, Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. The sword fiend had been sending out some sword lights to stop him. At this moment, he had not charged too far. Moreover, he didn't expect that the purple-robed elder and the woman in palace attire, two emperor-to-be experts, would be killed so quickly. Sword Fiend had clearly used a method to temporarily increase his combat power, allowing his own combat power to be infinitely close to that of an emperor-level expert. "Kid, it's your turn now." The Sword Fiend sneered. He took a step forward and appeared above the Dian elixir furnace. His huge sword slashed down. Boom! The huge sword hit the Dian elixir furnace, causing it to shake violently. Like a cannonball, it fell into the abyss and hit the ground heavily. The entire abyss started to shake violently. A huge pit that was 100 meters deep was created on the ground. The Dian elixir furnace was embedded in the deep pit. In the Dian elixir furnace, Lu Ming spat out a mouthful of blood and his face was pale. Although he had the protection of the Dian elixir furnace and the other party could not break it, Lu Ming's cultivation was limited after all. He could not unleash the power of the Dian elixir furnace at all. Moreover, his cultivation was far inferior to his opponent's. His opponent's strength had injured Lu Ming just by shaking the Pailai furnace. This treasure is really amazing. Not only am I going to step into the Emperor tier today, but I'll also be able to obtain a few rare treasures. The heavens are really helping me. The Sword Fiend laughed and appeared above the Dian elixir furnace, slashing at it again. Thump! The Dian elixir furnace shook violently, and the terrifying power caused the surrounding ground to explode. The 100-meter-deep pit exploded again and became even larger. The Dian elixir furnace trembled and produced a terrifying force that bombarded Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming spat out a mouthful of blood and his injuries worsened. "We can't continue like this." Lu Ming's mind was spinning rapidly, trying to find a way to escape. However, in such an environment, he could not escape at all. The difference in strength between him and his opponent was too great. Even the Dian elixir furnace couldn't protect him. If this went on, he would be shaken to death sooner or later. He might even exhaust his saint power and lose control of the Dian elixir furnace. "Let's see how long you can hide." The Sword Fiend shouted, and the huge sword in his hand, which was condensed from countless sword sources, kept slashing at the Dian elixir furnace. The entire abyss was shaking. Spider web-like cracks appeared on the ground, spreading in all directions. In the Dian elixir furnace, Lu Ming exerted all his strength. The laws of chaos protected his body and the holy power filled his body. However, the terrifying vibration continued to hit him, causing his injuries to worsen. Not long after, the Sword Fiend had attacked for more than 100 times. Lu Ming's aura was extremely weak and he was severely injured. Not good. Suddenly, Lu Ming's expression changed. He felt that he was starting to have difficulty controlling the Dian elixir furnace. Boom! As expected, when the Sword Fiend slashed down again, the Dian elixir furnace trembled and began to shrink rapidly. Finally, it turned into a ray of light and flew into the space between Lu Ming's eyebrows, disappearing. Lu Ming's body appeared in the deep pit. Kid, you've finally come out. Let's see how you're going to stop me now." Sword Fiend laughed sinisterly, his killing intent thick. In order to deal with Lu Ming, he had expended a large amount of Yuan Qi. Now, he was not even confident that he could break through to the martial emperor realm. All of this was Lu Ming's fault. He would make Lu Ming die an ugly death. Chapter 1896, Chapter 1896, The Celestial the Arch Sword Moves. Chapter 1896, The Celestial the Arch Sword Moves, What do we do? Lu Ming's mind was rapidly thinking of countermeasures. Now, Lu Ming had one last option, which was to enter the mountain and river diagram. However, once he entered the mountain and river diagram, it would be exposed to the other party and would be controlled by him. Moreover, he wasn't confident that the mountain and river diagram could block his opponent. The mountain and river diagram was only a grotto heaven treasure, and its defensive power couldn't be as strong as the Dian elixir furnace. Once he entered the mountain and river diagram, he would be completely passive and at the mercy of others. Are we going to die here today? Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly and was extremely unwilling. In his life, he had experienced many difficulties and dangers. He had experienced all kinds of dangers and had overcome them one by one. He was not willing to die just like that. He wanted to step onto the peak of martial arts. Die! At this moment, the sword fiend shouted coldly. He did not waste any more words, and the huge sword in his hand slashed towards Lu Ming. This sword could kill an emperor-to-be in seconds. It was so powerful that it was shocking. The sword had yet to reach him, but the terrifying pressure had already made it difficult for Lu Ming to move. The powerful pressure pressed down on Lu Ming's body, causing his bones to creak as if they were about to break. There was no way to block this sword. No, I can't die. I have family and friends who need my protection. My parents need my protection. Don't know where little Qing is now. Have to find her, and also Xiang. Once I die, Qiu Yue will die as well. I can't die. I want to reach the peak and change my fate. Lu Ming roared in his heart, and his fighting spirit burst forth. Even in a desperate situation, he was unwilling. Even if he was no match, he still wanted to fight. Even if he were to die, he would fight to his death. His eyes were filled with an unyielding look. Unyielding to the sword fiend, unyielding to fate. Buzz. At this moment, the sound of a sword rang through the 9 heavens. Inside the mountain and river diagram, a stone sword directly broke through the barrier of the mountain and river diagram and flew out, floating above Lu Ming's head. A terrifying sword light burst out from the stone sword and rushed into the sky. The sword light that the sword fiend had sent down was shattered by the sword light. This is the Celestial Emperor's sword. Lu Ming had never expected that the Celestial Thearch sword would suddenly rush out and block the other party's sword at the critical moment. This sword, Jian Sha's gaze also fell on the Celestial Emperor's sword. For some reason, when he saw the sword, his heart trembled. It's a divine sword, a peerless divine sword. If I can get my hands on this sword, my cultivation will instantly break through the shackles and reach the martial emperor realm. I might even be able to reach an even higher realm in the future. Sword Fiend's eyes glowed with a fiery light. He was a sword fiend that had been inadvertently born in Arti Sword Tomb after countless years, and he had intelligence. However, his inborn talent was lacking. Unlike the human race, it was extremely difficult for him to advance. It was much more difficult than the human race, the demon race, and the divine beasts. He had cultivated arduously for many years and had finally found the opportunity to break through to the martial supreme realm. However, because of Lu Ming, the opportunity to make a breakthrough had become mysterious again. However, Lu Ming actually had a peerless divine sword in his hands. He had a feeling that as long as he obtained this peerless divine sword, he would be able to rise up in the future. Even his cultivation speed would soar. He had to get this sword. Kid, you have quite a lot of treasures in your hands. Hand over this sword obediently and I can give you a quick death. The sword fiend looked at Lu Ming coldly, but the greed in his eyes could not be concealed. If you let me go, I can give it to you. Lu Ming's eyes flickered as he said, All right, I promise to let you go. Give me the sword. Sword fiend did not hesitate at all and immediately nodded. Do you think I'm stupid? What if you go back on your word? When I get out, I'll pass it to you. Lu Ming said, Brat, you're not qualified to negotiate with me now. If you don't hand it over, then I'll take it myself. Jian Sha said coldly. The aura on his body became stronger again, and the giant sword in his hand gave off a terrifying fluctuation. Buzz. He slashed down with his sword again. This time, the power of his sword was even stronger than before. Buzz. The Celestial Thearch sword trembled slightly and scattered a sword curtain that enveloped Lu Ming. The sword fiend's sword light slashed at the light screen, but it was like water droplets falling into the ocean. There was no ripple at all, and it disappeared. No, it didn't disappear. It was absorbed by the Celestial Emperor's sword. Buzz. The Celestial Emperor's sword trembled again, emitting a terrifying attractive force. Jian Sha's expression changed. At that moment, he felt a terrifying suction force from the Celestial Emperor's sword. The huge sword in his hand was about to fly towards the Celestial Emperor's sword. A few of the sword sources even left the giant sword and flew towards the Celestial Emperor's sword. They entered the Celestial Emperor's sword and disappeared. The Celestial Emperor's sword trembled slightly as if it was very excited. Its attraction became stronger. "You want to devour my sword source?" The sword fiend roared. Blood light flowed out from his body continuously and started to burn, causing his strength to increase greatly. He managed to stabilize the huge sword in his hand. "Your sword is indeed amazing, but don't even think about swallowing my sword source." Jiansha shouted, his eyes as cold as a blade. "What if I'm included?" At this moment, a cold voice sounded. Lu Ming was not the one who spoke. Other than Lu Ming and Sword Fiend, there was a third person? Luo Xiang. Lu Ming immediately thought of Luo Xiang. He spread out his spiritual consciousness and saw that Luo Xiang had opened his eyes. A black and white sword was floating above his head. That was his sword soul. Luo Xiang didn't die. "You're not dead yet?" Sword Fiend shrieked. "You're not dead, so how can I die?" "Devour," Luo Xiang said indifferently. When he said the last word, the huge sword on his back that was stuck in the ground started to shake violently. Buzz! The sword hummed and howled. The giant sword emitted a brilliant light and a terrifying suction force enveloped the sword fiend. A few sword sources flew out from the giant sword in the sword fiend's hand and entered the giant sword. At this time, the Celestial Emperor's sword also seized the opportunity and burst out with a suction force. Whoosh, whoosh. The sword essence of the giant sword in the sword fiend's hand flew towards the Celestial Emperor's sword. The Celestial Emperor's sword and the giant sword on Luo Xiang's back simultaneously exploded with a suction force, and the sword fiend finally couldn't resist. To his horror, he couldn't leave this place even if he wanted to. He found that he couldn't move his body at all. He was being sucked in by the Celestial Emperor's sword and the giant sword on Luo Xiang's back. Meanwhile, the sword source of the giant sword in his hand kept separating and being absorbed by the Celestial Emperor's sword and the giant sword. Suddenly, two sword sources flew toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt that this seemed to be a gift from the Celestial Thearch's sword. He was a little dazed. However, the sword sources were good stuff. Lu Ming burst out with the devouring power and absorbed the energy of the two sword sources into his body. He then sat cross-legged and began to refine them. Chapter 1897, Chapter 1897, Chapter 1897, Refining Them All. Chapter 1897, Chapter 1897 Refining them all in his dantian, his two saint hearts were working at full force. The saint power slowly grew and surged into Lu Ming's limbs and bones. His injuries began to recover. On the other side, Luo Xiang's situation was very similar to Lu Ming's. The giant sword would actually split out a sword source and fly towards Luo Xiang, which was then absorbed by his sword soul. Luo Xiang sat there cross-legged, motionless, like an old monk in meditation, concentrating on his cultivation. "No, no!" The sword fiend howled and continued to explode out. He wanted to resist, but it was useless. He could not move at all. He seemed to be restrained, and as the sword source on the giant sword in his hand was continuously drawn away, his ability to resist was getting weaker and weaker. However, there were too many sword sources on the giant sword. It was endless and could not be absorbed in a short time. Time passed by quickly, day after day. Given the strength of Lu Ming's spirit body, his injuries were fully healed after a day. He then used the power of the sword source to temper his vital essence and increase his cultivation. Every time the energy of the sword source was refined, another two sword sources would fly to him and be devoured and refined by Lu Ming. As time passed, Lu Ming's cultivation grew stronger and closer to an absolute saint. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. In 3 months, the endless sword source in the sword fiend's hands had almost been completely absorbed by the Celestial Emperor's sword and that huge sword. As for Lu Ming, he had also refined many sword sources. His cultivation had reached the limit of the Supreme Saint Realm and was very close to the Absolute Saint Realm. It was not that easy to break through to the absolute saint realm. Although Lu Ming had refined many sword sources during this period of time, he still had not broken through. He needed an opportunity. However, Lu Ming was already very satisfied. It was very difficult for a great saint to break through to an absolute saint. It required a long time of accumulation. Without enough accumulation, it was difficult to advance. Take Qiu Yue for example. When Lu Ming first met her, Qiu Yue was already a perfected great saint. However, she had not broken through to the absolute saint realm. This was because she was accumulating her strength. Only after accumulating to a certain level would one be able to break through. Under normal circumstances, Lu Ming would not have been able to break through to the absolute saint realm without a few years of accumulation, considering that he had cultivated 2 saint hearts. But now, Lu Ming had accumulated a few years' worth of experience in just 3 months. The Celestial Emperor's sword had absorbed a large amount of sword source. There was a layer of faint white light on it, which looked extremely mysterious. The huge sword behind Luo Xiang also emitted a dazzling sword light with many mysterious patterns moving on it. No, I'm not willing, Jiansha muttered to himself. At this moment, his aura was extremely dispirited and he was extremely weak. When the last sword source was absorbed, the Celestial Emperor's sword shook and all its aura was retracted. It transformed back into an ordinary stone sword and flew into Lu Ming's glabella, floating in his sea of consciousness. With a single thought, the Celestial Emperor's sword appeared in Lu Ming's hand. However, after Lu Ming infused his saint energy into it, he realized that it was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no reaction at all from the Celestial Emperor's sword. Is this really the Celestial Emperor's sword? I can't even unleash its full power. Lu Ming was speechless. He kept the Celestial Emperor's sword back into his sea of consciousness. At this moment, the giant sword on Luo Xiang's back started to shake as if it was going to break out of the ground. The light on the sword became even more brilliant, and a more powerful suction force enveloped the sword fiend. The sword fiend revealed a terrified expression and shouted, "No, don't!" He struggled madly, but it was all in vain. His body flew towards the giant sword and sank into it, disappearing. Buzz! The huge sword buzzed, and the entire valley shook violently. Lu Ming flew out of the deep pit and stood in the air to observe from a distance. The huge sword trembled more and more violently. Finally, it rushed out of the ground and flew into the sky. After flying in a circle in the sky, it directly rushed towards Luo Xiang. When it got close to Luo Xiang's body, it became smaller and smaller, and then it disappeared into Luo Xiang's glabella. At this moment, Luo Xiang opened his eyes, and a powerful aura emanated from him. Great sage, great perfection. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Luo Xiang's cultivation base had also reached the great saint in the great perfection realm. It seemed that Luo Xiang had also obtained a great opportunity because of this giant sword. Moreover, Lu Ming discovered that Luo Xiang's spirit body was extraordinary. It had actually evolved to the level of a medium-grade heaven spirit body. When Lu Ming first met Luo Xiang, his spirit body was only a low-grade earth spirit body. 15 years of nurturing the sword soul. It's indeed not simple, Lu Ming muttered. He had long felt that Luo Xiang wasn't simple. He had already mastered the law of speed, which was one of the king path laws. Now that his cultivation had reached the great saint perfection, he had obtained that giant sword and cultivated the wonderful sword soul. His combat power was absolutely terrifying. Luo Xiang stood up and looked at Lu Ming with a smile on his face. Lu Ming, long time no see. One didn't expect to meet you here after we parted at the Azure continent. I didn't expect to see you here either. What's going on between you two? Also your master At this point, Lu Ming stopped and sighed. My master, he must have fallen. Luo Xiang said with a sad look in his eyes. He seems to have lost his intelligence. His soul is no longer there. Lu Ming nodded. His soul was destroyed by the sword fiend. Lu Ming, let's leave this place first. We'll talk as we walk. Luo Xiang said. All right. Lu Ming nodded. Then, together with Luo Xiang, they soared into the sky and flew up to the abyss. They then flew towards the exit of the sword tomb. They didn't encounter any accidents along the way. Soon, they flew out of the sword tomb and into the distance. On the way, Luo Xiang told Lu Ming about their encounter after they escaped from the Azure region. After they escaped from the Tsang state, they did not reach the ancient Moon Holy Land. Instead, they followed a caravan and took a teleportation array to the vicinity of the Tai sword tomb. Later on, Luo Xiang followed the life and death sword sect's sect leader to the sword tomb to cultivate and accidentally stumbled into this abyss. The sword fiend had been planning to attract other martial artists here. He wanted to use the blood of the other martial artists as a sacrifice to the sword. With the energy of the sword source, he would be able to break through to the martial emperor realm in one go. Therefore, the sword fiend split out the soul of the sword fiend and destroyed the soul of the life and death sword sect leader, controlling him. Because Luo Xiang had a sword soul, he had the protection of that huge sword. Moreover, Luo Xiang cultivated a sword soul, which was used to destroy the soul of the sword fiend. So previously, Sword Fiend thought that Luo Xiang had died, but in fact, Luo Xiang didn't die. Instead, he formed a connection with the giant sword. However, with his strength alone, it was impossible for him to be the Sword Fiend's opponent. In the end, the Celestial Emperor's sword appeared and exploded with a strong power to attract the Sword Fiend. Only then did Luo Xiang take action, cooperating with the giant sword to attack the Sword Fiend. Lu Ming came to a realization and finally understood the cause and effect. Luo Xiang could also be considered to have profited from this misfortune and obtained a great fortuitous encounter. Unfortunately, the death of the life and death sword sect's sect master made him quite sad. The two of them flew more than 100,000 miles away and landed on a mountain peak. Lu Ming summoned Qiu Yue from the mountain and river diagram. Qiu Yue had just come out and was very surprised. Lu Ming explained what had happened earlier. Chapter 1890, Chapter 1898, Qiu Yue breaks through to Absolute Saint. Chapter 1898, Qiu Yue breaks through to Absolute Saint. Qiu Yue was surprised to hear that. She did not expect that the celestial Thearch's sword that Lu Ming had pulled out in the Heavenly Emperor City would be of great use here and save them. Qiu Yue, now that I have all the ingredients, why don't we concoct the soul recovery pill here? Lu Ming said. Anyway, the materials had been gathered. Lu Ming wanted to refine the soul recovery pill as soon as possible. Moreover, Luo Xiang's cultivation level had soared and he needed time to consolidate it. He might as well refine the pill here. Anyway, the environment here was more hidden and he was not afraid of being disturbed. That's fine too. Qiu Yue nodded and her eyes were filled with anticipation. She also wanted to know what the memory that had been taken from her was. When a person knew that a part of her memory had been taken away and was blank, she would still think about it and be curious. This would also cause her obsession and affect her cultivation. Lu Ming immediately took out the Dian elixir furnace and recited the refining method of the soul recovery pill in his heart. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he took out the various materials one by one. The soul recovery pill was a very rare and high-level pill. It was also very complicated to refine. It was a slow process that couldn't be rushed. Lu Ming threw the first material into the Dian elixir furnace and began to temper it. When the first material was almost completely tempered, the second material would be put in according to the sequence and the tempering would begin. This would allow the two materials to fuse together in a strange way. Of course, he only started with supplementary ingredients. Luo Xiang and Qiu Yue sat on both sides of Lu Ming, a few miles away from him. They were cultivating and guarding Lu Ming. Time passed day by day. This time, he used half a month to refine the medicine. Clang. Half a month later, Lu Ming opened the lid of the furnace and a pill flew out. I've succeeded. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He stretched out his hand and sucked the pill into his palm. Lu Ming took a closer look. It was really the soul recovery pill. It was exactly the same as what was recorded in the prescription. He spent half a month and finally succeeded in refining it. With a flash, Qiu Yue and Luo Xiang appeared in front of Lu Ming. Qiu Yue looked at the pill in Lu Ming's hand with anticipation. Qiu Yue, the soul recovery pill is a success. Take it, Lu Ming said. All right. Qiu Yue nodded and swallowed the pill without hesitation. She then sat down cross-legged and began to refine it. Let's hope it works. Lu Ming could not help but clench his fists. He was a little nervous. The soul recovery pill might not be able to restore Qiu Yue's memory 100%, and there was a possibility of failure. If he failed, it would be difficult to find the materials for the soul recovery pill again. However, Qiu Yue had been with him all this time, and it was indeed effective. This would also increase the success rate. Lu Ming and Luo Xiang stood at the side and waited. There was a layer of light on Qiu Yue's body, and the laws of yin and yang were circulating nonstop. She was clearly refining an elixir. 3 days later, Qiu Yue opened her eyes. Has it recovered? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Initially, Qiu Yue's eyes were filled with confusion. Slowly, her eyes regained their liveliness. She looked at Lu Ming and suddenly smiled happily. Her body moved and she pounced toward Lu Ming, throwing herself into his arms. Young master, Qiu Yue has remembered you. Young master, you've finally come to look for Qiu Yue. As she spoke, Qiu Yue's tears flowed down her face and drenched Lu Ming's clothes. Qiu Yue, have you recovered your memories? Lu Ming asked. Qiu Yue kissed Lu Ming's body a few times, wiping her tears on his clothes. She then blinked her big eyes at Lu Ming and said, Young master, I've recovered. Previously, please don't blame Qiu Yue for what happened before. She was referring to Qiu Yue's attitude toward him. When they first met, she even treated Lu Ming as her opponent. Don't blame me? Of course, you have to blame him. You have to be punished for treating your young master like this. Lu Ming deliberately pulled a long face. Then how should we punish him? Qiu Yue asked in a low voice. What do you think? Lu Ming chuckled. Qiu Yue suddenly stepped forward and gave Lu Ming a peck on the lips. She then glanced at Luo Xiang who was beside her. Luo Xiang's eyes immediately darted around and he deliberately looked in other directions as if he could not see anything. This way. Will this work? Qiu Yue's face turned red and her voice became lower and lower. Little girl, I haven't seen you for a long time and you're getting more and more daring. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. However, he was also happy. Qiu Yue's memory had finally recovered. The way she looked at him was exactly the same as 10 years ago. Qiu Yue stuck out her tongue and made a face. Qiu Yue, let's return to the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. Lu Ming smiled. Young master, I'm afraid we can't go back yet. After I recovered my memory, one felt that my spirit embryo had become bright. It seems that I'm about to break through to the absolute saint realm. If I miss this time, Qiu Yue said softly. He's about to break through? Lu Ming was overjoyed but he was not too surprised. Qiu Yue had already reached the great saint realm in the great perfection for a long time. She had accumulated enough. Now that his memories had been restored, his spirit embryo had become bright, and his thoughts were clear, it was normal for an opportunity to break through to the next level to appear. We don't have anything else to do anyway. Your breakthrough is more important. We'll be waiting for you here, Lu Ming said. An opportunity to break through could only be encountered and not sought. If he missed this opportunity, he did not know when the next one would come. It would be a waste of time. Qiu Yue nodded, then flew forward and started cultivating. Lu Ming and Luo Xiang protected Qiu Yue. Qiu Yue closed her eyes and sank into a deep level of cultivation. She paid no attention to the outside world and focused on breaking through. Saint power surged on her body, and the laws of yin and yang surrounded her. Her aura grew stronger with each day. Just like that, half a month passed. Qiu Yue's aura had reached its peak. Boom. As if something had broken, a powerful aura burst out of Qiu Yue's body and rushed into the sky. Then, Qiu Yue opened her eyes and waved her hand. Large piles of raw gemstones appeared and she started to absorb the raw gemstones' raw qi, as well as the natural qi in the heaven and earth. This process lasted for 3 days. 3 days later, Qiu Yue's aura had reached its peak. The aura of an absolute saint. Qiu Yue was the first to become an absolute saint and reach the lower tier. With the talent of the Autumn Moon King body, her combat strength would definitely increase sharply after she became an absolute saint. Even now, Lu Ming was not fully confident that he could defeat Qiu Yue. After a while, Qiu Yue finished her cultivation, retracted her aura, and stood up. Qiu Yue, congratulations. Lu Ming stepped forward and looked at Qiu Yue, feeling rather emotional. The little girl who had grown up with him had already become an absolute saint. She would be a top genius even in the vast Yuan Mountain. Who could have expected this? It's all thanks to young master. Otherwise, one wouldn't have been able to break through so quickly. Qiu Yue smiled. All right, let's go back. Lu Ming took out the space-breaking shuttle and the three of them entered it. The space-breaking shuttle shot out like lightning and flew towards the nearest teleportation point. Chapter 1899. Chapter 1899. The Great Emperor's Tao Lecture. Chapter 1899. The Great Emperor's Tao Lecture. The Heavenly Emperor City was always so prosperous. As the number one holy land of the Yuan Mountain, it had gathered countless strong cultivators. On the other hand, the platform where the Celestial Emperor's sword was located had lost its former liveliness. Ever since the Celestial Emperor's sword was pulled out by Lu Ming, no one was interested in it anymore. A young man stood in the air above the platform. This young man was dressed in snow-white clothes, shoes, and socks. His black hair was loose, and his eyes were as dazzling as two stars. At this moment, the young man was emitting a terrifying aura as he stared at the platform. When did the Celestial Emperor's sword get pulled out? The young man said, his voice cold. Beside the young man, there was an old man with gloomy eyes. About 5 months ago. He replied. Who is it? The young man continued to ask. This person controls the laws of chaos and is a very young Heaven's Pride expert. We've sent people to investigate. He's a Heaven's Pride expert from the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. His name is Lu Ming. The old man replied. The laws of chaos. Lu Ming, how dare you take away my sword from the galaxy? You really don't know what's good for you. The killing intent in the young man's eyes grew stronger. So he was the number one genius on the Saint King ranking, the Eternal Son, Xingqian. However, that kid is also smart. After taking the Celestial Emperor's sword, he disappeared. We have used various methods to find out that the kid has not been in the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy during this period of time. He should have gone out to train. The old man said, Unless he never returns to the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy, my sword will always be mine. Xingqian snorted coldly, then turned around and left. In a citadel outside the Heavenly Emperor City, Lu Ming, Qiu Yue, and Luo Xiang stepped out of the teleportation formation. They had to travel for half a month before they reached the nearest teleportation area. Then, they returned to the guard city of the Heavenly Emperor City through the teleportation array. After they got out of the teleportation array, they rose into the air and flew towards Heavenly Emperor City. Not long after, they returned to the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. Of course, Luo Xiang wasn't a disciple of the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy, so he was naturally stopped. However, with his talent he easily passed the test and became a member of the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. As soon as he entered the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Institute, Lu Ming realized that the Sacred Institute was much livelier than before. In the past, many people had been cultivating in seclusion in various cultivation places of the Sacred Institute. But now, it seemed that many people had come out of seclusion. Lu Ming was a little surprised. Not long after, they arrived at the Saint King ranking. The number of people on the Saint King ranking has increased by a lot. Qiu Yue said. Lu Ming nodded. Previously, there were only about 40 people on the Saint King ranking. Now, there were more than 80 people. It was double the number. It was obvious that many people had broken through to the absolute saint realm during this period of time. They were improving and so were others. Therefore, in a competition between geniuses, once one was at a standstill, one would be quickly surpassed by others. So many absolute saints. Luo Xiang's eyes were bright, revealing his battle intent. The three of them didn't stay for long. After a glance, They flew back to their residence. When he returned to his residence, he found that everyone was there. Huang Ling, Long Chen, Desolate Li, and the others were all gathered together. You guys didn't go into closed-door cultivation? Lu Ming asked curiously. Lu Ming, you've returned just in time. The great emperor will be giving a lecture tomorrow. If you'd returned a day later, you wouldn't have made it. Huang Ling smiled. The great emperor's lecture, it seems my luck is not bad. Lu Ming smiled. Lady Qiu Yue, has she recovered her memory? Huang Ling looked at Qiu Yue with a complicated expression. I was lucky this time. I found the materials one needed and made the soul recovery pill. Qiu Yue's memory has been restored, Lu Ming said. Everyone came forward to congratulate him. After that, Lu Ming introduced Luo Xiang to everyone. Lu Ming, I heard that you pulled out the Celestial Emperor's sword. Is that true? Long Chen suddenly said. Not bad. Lu Ming nodded. You have to be careful. Some time ago, the Heng family has been sending people to find out about you. I heard that the Hengxing River has already announced that the Celestial Emperor's sword will be his personal sword. Now that the great emperor is giving a lecture, many geniuses have come out of seclusion. The Hengxing River has also come out of seclusion. Long Chen said with a frown. You're afraid that the Star River will find trouble with me. It's fine. At most, he'll just put the Celestial Emperor's sword back in and see if he can pull it out. Lu Ming laughed. Good idea, huh? Desolate Li laughed as well. Some of them were in seclusion, while others were out traveling. They had not seen each other for a long time, so naturally, there were many topics to talk about. Some people even started sparring on the spot, which was quite lively. A day passed in the blink of an eye. The next day was the day of the great emperor's Dao lecture. 2 months ago, the date for the Dao lecture was set. During this period of time, almost all the geniuses had exited their seclusion. It could be said to be the most lively day in the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. Lu Ming and the others flew towards the highest peak in the depths of the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. The great emperor's Dao lecture would be held at the peak of this mountain. At the peak of the mountain, there was a piece of flat land. It was very wide and open. On the flat land, there were more than 10,000 futons. At the forefront of the flat land, there was an ordinary-looking old man in a gray robe. He was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Many people had already taken their seats on the praying mats, but there was no sound at all. Everyone was holding their breath and concentrating. When Lu Ming and the rest arrived and looked at the old man, they felt a chilly in their hearts. The old man looked very ordinary, but the seat he was sitting on was the seat for preaching. The one giving the lecture today was a great emperor. Needless to say, the old man was a great emperor. The Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy was established by 3 great emperors. However, the great emperors were extremely elusive. After everyone joined the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy, they had yet to meet the great emperor. Was it finally possible for them to meet one? Lu Ming and the rest held their breath and sat down on some futons at random. Next, more and more geniuses arrived. All of a sudden, Lu Ming felt an icy cold aura enveloping him. He turned around and saw a group of paragons approaching. Among them, he saw Luo Pokong, but he wasn't at the forefront. There was another young man in front of him. The man's face was cold and his eyes were shining with a faint sense of pride as he looked at Lu Ming coldly. Young master, that's Luo Cangqiong. Qiu Yue sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming. Luo Cangqiong? Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a murderous intent. Kid, Qiu Yue is mine. If you're smart, you'd better get lost. If you don't, you'll die a horrible death. Luo Cangqiong's voice rang in Lu Ming's ears. Of course, he was using voice transmission. With the great sovereign here, no matter how lawless Luo Cangqiong was, he didn't dare to make a loud noise. Wishful thinking. Lu Ming replied indifferently, revealing a faint look of disdain. Luo Cangqiong's eyes flashed with cold, killing intent. He glanced at Qiu Yue and said no more. He stepped forward and walked to the front row of praying mats. Chapter 1900, Chapter 1900. Enlightenment. Chapter 1900. Enlightenment buzz. All of a sudden, a white light flashed past, attracting the attention of many. A young man in a snow-white robe flew to the front and sat down. That's the Stellar River. Huang Ling sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming. Lu Ming nodded and took note of this person. He had a feeling that he would have a battle with the Stellar River sooner or later. More and more geniuses arrived. The number of people on the mountain peak continued to increase. In the end, there were close to 10,000 people. However, there were nearly 10,000 people sitting here, but not a single sound was made. No one spoke. On the mountain peak, one could even hear a pin drop. The old man didn't say anything either. He had been resting with his eyes closed. Half an hour passed and no one came. At this time, the old man opened his eyes. The moment the old man opened his eyes, everyone had an illusion as if they had suddenly arrived in the starry sky of the universe. However, the next moment, this illusion disappeared without a trace. All right, almost everyone has arrived. If there are still people who haven't arrived, we won't wait any longer. Today, this old man will be the one to preach. The old man spoke in a gentle voice that echoed in everyone's ears. Everyone's spirits lifted. This elder was indeed a great emperor. It was said that the 3 great emperors who founded the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy were called Skyfire Great Emperor, Huntian Great Emperor, and Wuxiang Great Emperor. Which of the 3 great emperors was this great emperor? This old man is Luo Xiang. From now on, you can just call me Dean Luo Xiang. The old man smiled. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. So this was Emperor Formless. This was an existence at the peak of the entire Yuan Mountain, a figure who stood at the peak of all living beings. He had lived for an unknown amount of time. Now, the lecture begins. Emperor Formless' voice resounded, and everyone immediately focused their attention. At this moment, a small bell appeared in Emperor Formless' hand. The small bell flew into the sky and rapidly grew in size. Clang! The small bell trembled and rang. When everyone heard the bell ring, their spirits were instantly lifted. They felt their thoughts become sharper and more focused. What a wonderful bell! Lu Ming realized that the bell's effect was similar to that of the path understanding ancient tree. Then, rays of light emanated from the small bell. When everyone was enveloped by this light, their thoughts seemed to become more focused. This is the Bodhi bell. I've spent several years letting the Bodhi bell absorb years of Bodhi energy. The Bodhi energy and the Bodhi bell can greatly increase the speed and efficiency of your Tao comprehension. Emperor Formless explained. Emperor Notionless is really well prepared for this Tao lecture. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. No wonder almost all the geniuses in the Yuan Mountain region had gathered in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy. Where else would they be able to enjoy such treatment? The Tao I'm talking about isn't biased toward any particular law, but a great Tao. There are countless nomological laws in the world, but the great Tao is one. Any nomological law can be comprehended from the great Tao. How much you can comprehend depends on your own comprehension ability. Emperor Formless spoke. As soon as he finished speaking, his body seemed to transform. His figure disappeared and transformed into a world. Endless music came from the world, and the light covered everyone. This was the most fundamental great Tao, and it was infinitely mysterious. Lu Ming could not help but recall that when he had participated in the Hunyuan sex assessment, there had been a stage where he had to comprehend Tao for the abyss. It was very similar to the way the Formless Emperor had preached. They were all great Taos that pointed directly to the source. At this moment, everyone closed their eyes and silently comprehended the Tao. Emperor Formless lectured for 3 days and 3 nights. After 3 days and 3 nights, he stopped. However, no one woke up. They were all in a deep state of enlightenment. Emperor Formless revealed a warm smile and closed his eyes again. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Boom! A powerful aura rose from one of them. This person had actually broken through. Not long after, the man opened his eyes. I've made a breakthrough in my cultivation. I've broken through from the upper tier of a bright saint to the peak of a bright saint. The man was ecstatic. He had been stuck at the great mastery of the bright saint stage for a long time and had not been able to break through. However, the great emperor's lecture this time had allowed him to break through. Then he looked around and his expression turned ugly. The others were still comprehending the Tao. He was the first one to wake up. The earlier one woke up, the worse one's comprehension would be, and the less one could comprehend. The youth's excitement from breaking through instantly disappeared without a trace. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured on his head. "Since you've ended your enlightenment, you may leave." A voice rang out in this person's mind. It was the voice of Emperor Notionless. The young man's heart trembled. He quickly stood up and bowed to the great emperor before leaving. However, he didn't go far. He stood in the void and watched from afar. He was very curious as to who would wake up the last among all the heaven's favorites. After this young man, there were many descendants who woke up, and there were also people who broke through their cultivation. The great emperor's Tao lecture, coupled with the Bodhi Bell's support, was indeed very effective. However, most of the people breaking through cultivation were in the bright saint realm. The higher the cultivation, the harder it was to break through. It was not so easy to break through to the supreme saint realm, let alone those above the absolute saint realm. On the 20th day, half of the people had already woken up and ended their enlightenment. Everyone had gained something. The longer they spent comprehending the Tao, the greater their gains. Almost all of the people who had finished their enlightenment left the mountain peak and watched from a distance, just like the first youth. Boom. At this time, another person's body erupted with a powerful aura. Some supreme saint geniuses had broken through. After that man, a few supreme saints broke through to the next realm. Of course, great saints were able to break through because they were already at the limit of a certain realm and were about to break through. Therefore, when the great emperor was teaching, they all broke through their limits and entered a higher realm. If he had just broken through to a certain realm, it would have been difficult for him to break through so quickly. A month later, there were less than 1,000 people left. 1.5 months later, there were only about 200 people left. 2 months later, there were only a few dozen people left who were still comprehending Tao. The last few dozen people could be said to be the most talented few dozen people. Most of them had king physiques and could control king path laws. Huang Ling, Long Chen, Huang Li, Qiu Yue, and the others were still comprehending the Tao. The king physique is truly astonishing. He actually managed to comprehend it for 2 months. How much can one gain from comprehending Tao for 2 months? Many people were envious, especially those who finished their enlightenment in a dozen days. They felt that if they had already gained a lot from comprehending the Tao for more than 10 days, then what they had gained from comprehending the Tao for 2 months would definitely be unimaginable. It would definitely be much more than what they had gained. Chapter 1901, Chapter 1901, The Last One. Chapter 1901, The Last One. Boom. Suddenly, a terrifying aura shot up into the sky. One of the young men's saint energy was surging, and his aura was getting stronger. Breaking through to the absolute saint realm. Someone exclaimed. He had a king body and had broken through to the absolute saint realm. In fact, someone had already broken through to the absolute saint realm before this, but it wasn't the king body. Some people had stayed in the great sage perfection for a long time and accumulated enough. At this time, during the great emperor's Tao lecture, they had some enlightenment and directly broke through. However, this was the first time someone had broken through to the absolute saint realm with a king body. The man took out a large number of raw gemstones and began to absorb the raw energy to improve his cultivation. Breaking through to the absolute saint realm caused a huge commotion, but the remaining people were protected by the emperor's energy. They weren't disturbed at all and could comprehend the Tao in peace. A few days later, the person who had broken through retracted his aura and opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with joy. He had a king physique. Now that he had broken through to the absolute saint realm, his combat power had increased dramatically. He could be considered one of the people who had entered the peak of the Yuan Mountain's sacred academy. He looked at the remaining people and his face darkened. Out of all the king physiques, he was the first to end his enlightenment. Could it be that his talent and potential were the worst among the king physiques? That was impossible. He found it hard to accept this. He thought that he had ended his enlightenment early because of his breakthrough. I'd like to see who will be the last one to finish the enlightenment. Will it be the galaxy, the Death Blade, or Lu Ming? His gaze swept across the galaxy, the Death Blade, and Lu Ming. Then he took a step forward and left the place, watching from a distance. From then on, a king physique would wake up every day. The cultivation of these king bodies was very high. Some were absolute saints, some were supreme saints, and the lowest cultivation was peak supreme saint. Many supreme saints with king bodies had broken through to the next realm, but not many absolute saints. Boom, boom. 2.5 months later, a shocking aura burst out of Long Chen's body. He had also made a breakthrough, from the great perfection of the supreme saint to the absolute saint realm. On the second day, a powerful aura burst out from Huang Ling's body. She had also begun her breakthrough. They had been in the great sage great perfection for a long time. They had been cultivating in the Yuan Mountains Saint Academy. Now they had finally broken through. The two of them broke through one after another, which made the paragons of Phoenix Palace and Divine Elephant sect overjoyed. After Huang Ling and Long Chen woke up, Qiu Yue, Luo Xiang, and Huang Li also woke up. Qiu Yue had just broken through to the absolute saint realm not long ago, so naturally, she hadn't broken through so quickly. However, she had also gained a lot. Her cultivation was much closer to the absolute saint realm, and her superpowers had improved a lot. As for Luo Xiang, due to his lack of accumulation, he didn't break into the absolute saint realm, but he had reached the limit of the great saint perfection. As for Desolate Li, he had become an absolute saint 5 months ago. Although he hadn't broken through yet, he had reached the limit of the lower-tier absolute saint realm. He wasn't far from the upper-tier absolute saint realm. Everyone's gains were huge. As time passed, the remaining king physiques also woke up one by one. Suddenly, a shocking aura burst out from one of the remaining cultivators. Someone else had broken through. It was Luo Cangqiong. My elder brother Luo Cangqiong has broken through. He has entered the perfected absolute saint realm from the absolute saint realm. Luo Pokong was ecstatic. He had actually entered the great circle of the absolute saint realm. Many people were shocked. Luo Cangqiong was already very powerful. He was ranked 10th on the Saint King ranking. Of course, the Saint King ranking might not be accurate, but it was still not a small matter. At this moment, his cultivation had broken through and he was undoubtedly even stronger. Qiu Yue, Feng Ling, Long Chen, and the others didn't look good. Luo Cangqiong was destined to be their enemy. If he broke through, it would be disadvantageous to them. Not long after, Luo Cangqiong finished his breakthrough and woke up. After Luo Cangqiong woke up, he looked at Lu Ming, who was still comprehending Tao, and snorted coldly. A cold, killing intent flashed in his eyes. He wanted to take this opportunity to kill Lu Ming, but he didn't dare to make a move when he saw Emperor Formless sitting there. If he offended a great emperor, even his grandfather wouldn't be able to protect him. It won't be too late to kill you after you wake up. Luo Cangqiong murmured and then left the place to watch from a distance. 3 months later, there were only 3 people who were still comprehending Tao: Galaxy, Death Blade, and Lu Ming. As expected, the 3 of them were the last to leave. The Son of God is indeed extraordinary. Someone sighed. It's just that you've been comprehending Tao for a little longer, but that doesn't mean anything. Who can say for sure how high your future achievements will be in the future? A king physique snorted coldly, obviously unconvinced. That's right. Although the sons of heaven are strong, their advantage is not as obvious after they become martial sovereigns. Furthermore, their future achievements may not be higher than that of the body of the king. In history, many body of the king's final achievements have surpassed the sons of heaven. That's right, there are even some who didn't have a king physique but reached the peak and surpassed the son of heaven. The others chimed in. Those standing here were all proud geniuses. How could they easily submit to others? Being ahead now did not mean that he would always be ahead in the future. After becoming a martial supreme, everything would become possible. Another 10 days passed. On this day, Heng Xinghe and the Death Blade both ended their enlightenment at the same time and opened their eyes. The two of them didn't break through because it was rumored that they had just broken through before the great emperor's Dao lecture. The two of them looked at each other with a cold glint in their eyes. Then they turned to look at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was still in the midst of enlightenment. Death Blade's eyes flickered, and he seemed to be thinking of something. Then he moved and left. As for Heng Xinghe, his eyes flashed with a sharp light. He had thought that he would be the last one to finish his enlightenment. He had not expected that there would be someone who had persevered longer than him. You are Lu Ming? Hee. The galaxy sneered, took a step forward, and flew into the sky far away. At the scene, Lu Ming was the only one who was still comprehending Dao. Everyone's eyes were on Lu Ming. One didn't expect Lu Ming to last longer than the Stellar River and the Death Blade. It's amazing. Could it be that his talent and potential are higher than the galaxy and the Death Blade? Some people were discussing. Who knows if this person is just putting on an act? In fact, he's already awake, but he's deliberately pretending to still be comprehending Dao, said Luo Pokong, his eyes filled with jealousy. Are you doubting Emperor Notionless Judgment? You're making yourself look stupid by saying this. Qiu Yue looked at Luo Pokong and said sarcastically. In front of Lu Ming, Qiu Yue had completely returned to her old personality, obedient and well-behaved. However, in front of others, he looked completely different, just like before he lost his memory. This might have something to do with Qiu Yue's recent experiences. Luo Pokong was stunned. His face was gloomy, but he could not refute. Emperor Notionless was still there. If Lu Ming had put on an act, how could Emperor Notionless not know? He would have asked him to leave long ago. Chapter 1902, Chapter 1902, Breaking Through to Absolute Saint? Chapter 1902, Breaking Through to Absolute Saint. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to be in a universe of stars. He moved about in the universe like lightning. At the same time, he pointed out with his fingers. Huge chaos fingers of tribulation formed and pointed at the stars in the distance. The chaotic finger was bigger than a star. Every time it touched a star, the star would explode like fireworks in the universe. It was a magnificent sight. After a moment, Lu Ming stopped. Primal Chaos Ring, 90% complete. Lu Ming smiled slightly, very satisfied. And NBSP during this period of time, he had used the Great Emperor's Dao lecture to focus more on the Primal Chaos Tribulation Finger. The Primal Chaos Tribulation Finger's level of mastery had increased from 80% to 90%. The higher the level of a sacred art, the more difficult it would be to improve it. The difficulty would continue to double. If he were to cultivate normally, it would take a long time to raise it from 80% to 90%. However, this time, with the help of the Great Emperor's enlightenment, Lu Ming overcame it in one fell swoop. The power of the Finger of Tribulation of Chaos had increased by a large margin. Of course, it would be even more difficult to raise it from 90% to 100% completion. Every increase would require a lot of energy and effort. My cultivation base is about to break through. Lu Ming's heart stirred. His cultivation base had already reached the limit of the Great Sage perfection. He was just short of an opportunity to make a breakthrough. And NBSP, although he had focused on comprehending the Primal Chaos Tribulation Finger, his cultivation had also increased, finally reaching the critical point. On the 4th month of his enlightenment, Lu Ming's body burst out with a shocking aura. Lu Ming is about to break through. He's about to reach Absolute Saint. Someone exclaimed. Lu Ming's combat strength was already amazing when he was in the Great Sage Perfection realm. He could suppress Luo Pokong, who was in the initial Absolute Saint realm. How powerful would his combat strength be after he broke through to the Absolute Saint realm? Many people were looking forward to it. Lu Ming is finally going to break through. The eyes of Feng Ling, Qiu Yue, and Long Qin lit up. So what if you've broken through? It's more interesting to kill like this. Luo Xiang sneered, and his killing intent grew stronger. As time passed, the aura on Lu Ming's body grew stronger. He waved his hand and a large number of raw gemstones appeared. The devouring power burst out and these raw gemstones turned into rolling raw gemstones. They were devoured and absorbed by him, turning into saint power. After a few days, Lu Ming's aura was completely retracted. His cultivation had officially entered the absolute saint realm. At this moment, Emperor Formless, who had been sitting cross-legged this entire time, opened his eyes. All right, this time's Tao Enlightenment has come to an end. The next Tao lecture will be held 3 years later. At that time, another great emperor will come to give a Tao lecture. With that, Emperor Formless' figure disappeared. No one saw how the emperor's figure disappeared. It was as if he had never been there. Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared where Qiu Yue, Huang Ling and the rest were. He swept his gaze across the room and smiled. Huang Ling, Long Chen, and Huang Yuan, congratulations on your breakthrough to the absolute saint realm. He realized that it was not only Huang Ling and Long Chen who had broken through. A few members of the desolate race had also broken through, entering the absolute saint realm. Most of the 9 youths from the desolate race who had followed Lu Ming out were at the perfected great saint realm. Furthermore, they had stayed there for quite some time. This time, with the help of the great emperor's lecture, their cultivation levels had all broken through. Although these people did not have king physiques, the desolate race's combat strength was strong to begin with. Furthermore, they also had high-tier heavenly spiritual bodies, so their combat strength was not weak. This way, they had quite a number of absolute saints on their side. Lu Ming, you've broken through too. One really don't know how strong you are now. Long Chen said with a smile. The others laughed as well. Indeed, Lu Ming's combat power was already so strong when he was a supreme saint. Now that he had broken through to the absolute saint realm, how strong would he be? They were all very curious. Boom. At this time, a terrifying aura enveloped them, causing everyone's expression to change as they looked in one direction. Luo Xiang stepped forward. Your terrifying aura came from Luo Xiang. Behind him, Luo Pokong and the other paragons of the Daoyuo Heaven sect followed. Chu, come here, come to my side. Luo Xiang looked at Qiu Yue and said. His tone was very domineering, as if he was giving an order. Luo Xiang, you don't have to bother me anymore. I've told you that I have no feelings for you. Qiu Yue said, come here. Luo Cangqiong's voice became more serious and overbearing. Qiu, let's go. Lu Ming held Qiu Yue's hand and ignored Luo Xiang. Stop right there, Lu Ming. You dare to touch my woman? I'll exterminate your entire family. Luo Cangqiong's voice was like a thunderclap, ringing in Lu Ming's ears. In the surroundings, many Heaven's favorites who were about to leave stopped in their tracks and looked over curiously. He had just finished comprehending the Tao, and a conflict was about to erupt? And it was Luo Xiang and Lu Ming. Many people were looking forward to it. Your woman? Hee hee, what a joke. Qiu Yue grew up with me since young. When did she become your woman? And Qiu Yue herself said that she has no feelings for you and told you to stop pestering her. You really are shameless. Lu Ming turned around and looked at Luo Xiang coldly. Do you know who you're talking to? Because of what you said, you will drag your family and friends down with you. They will all die because of you. Luo Xiang said. His eyes were extremely cold as he glanced at Feng Ling, Long Chen, and the others. He did not hide his killing intent at all. Who do you think you are? If you want to kill me, I'll kill you first. Desolate Li shouted, revealing a malevolent killing intent. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. He hated it the most when people threatened him with his family. Luo Xiang, let me tell you this. Lu Ming is my young master. One once said that I would serve him for the rest of my life. I have no feelings for you. What's the point of you pestering me? Qiu Yue said, bitch, shut up. If one say you're mine, you're mine. No one can take you away from me. Do you understand? Luo Xiang shouted coldly. His grandfather was a great emperor, a top expert in the world. Since he was young, he had gotten everything he wanted. Women were the same. Hee hee, what a joke. Qiu Yue doesn't like you, so you used the law of deprivation to deprive her of her memories. What a pity that Qiu Yue still has no feelings for you. Such a laughable and despicable person still has the face to stay in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy and be called a Heaven's Chosen. What a joke! Lu Ming sneered and his voice spread throughout the entire venue. Many people were enlightened. So that was how it was. Luo Xiang couldn't win Qiu Yue's heart, so he used the law of deprivation to deprive Qiu Yue's memory. It was indeed shameless. So what? Luo Xiang opened his mouth, and his eyes became even colder. It seems that you've recovered your memory, you bitch. 111 strip you of it again. This time, 111 strip you of all your memories. Lu Ming, I'll cripple your cultivation and make you watch Qiu Yue become my woman. Boom, boom, boom. Luo Xiang continued to take steps forward. With each step, the sky would shake violently. Chapter 1903, Chapter 1903, The Great Battle with Luo Xiang. Chapter 1903, The Great Battle with Luo Xiang. Luo Xiang was incomparably overbearing and could not be considered as the heavens. So what if others knew that he had taken Qiu Yue away? He was the great emperor's grandson. Who dared to speak ill of him in front of him? In front of him, all of them still wanted to curry favor with him. And now, he was going to take Qiu Yue's memory again in front of everyone and get her. Luo Xiang stepped toward Lu Ming and Qiu Yue. The sky and earth rumbled. He raised a palm and clenched it in the air. Endless energy between the sky and earth gathered in Luo Cangqiong's palm. No, it couldn't be said that they were all gathered together. They were completely deprived by him. The origin qi of heaven and earth, as well as all kinds of elemental energy in the world, were seized by Luo Xiang. They were compressed together to form a huge palm, which pressed down on Lu Ming and Qiu Yue. At this moment, the laws of yin and yang circulated around Qiu Yue's body. Two curved blades flew out, intending to take Luo Xiang head-on. Qiu Yue, let me do it. Lu Ming's voice rang out as he took a step forward. Light spots lit up on his body. There were more than 200 light spots, and a holy weapon flew out from each light spot. On the way back to the Heavenly Emperor City, Lu Ming cultivated the 10,000 soldiers' art and sealed a large number of holy weapons in his acupuncture points. Among them, there were 18 absolute saint weapons, 108 great saint weapons, and 108 bright saint weapons. In total, there were 234 of them. With so many holy weapons floating around Lu Ming, he stepped on them and walked forward. He casually picked up an absolute holy sword, and the qi of the holy weapon gathered. He slashed out, and a vast sword qi cut through the void, cutting Luo Cangqiong's big hand in half. Let's see how many moves you can block. Luo Xiang shouted and waved his hands continuously. The law of deprivation was activated and deprived the energy between heaven and earth. It formed a terrifying attack and attacked Lu Ming. Lu Ming stood in the middle of the holy weapon and walked on it. His combat sword kept slashing out, breaking the other party's attacks. The attacks of the two were extremely violent and powerful. The surrounding people were forced to retreat. Qiu Yue stood behind Lu Ming, her two curved daggers dancing in the air. She did not retreat at all. If the situation changed, she would not hesitate to take action. Back in the Blazing Sun Empire, she was weak and could not help Lu Ming. Now that she had the ability, she would stay by Lu Ming's side and protect him. The cry of a phoenix was heard. Huang Ling was bathed in the unperishable flame. She stepped forward and stood beside Qiu Yue. Qiu Yue looked at Huang Ling and smiled kindly. Huang Ling was stunned for a moment, but she returned the smile. After that, Long Chen and Desolate Li both stepped forward. Lu Ming and Luo Xiang have started a war. Who do you think will win? It's hard to say. Lu Ming has just broken through to the Absolute Saint realm, but Luo Cangqiong's cultivation has already reached the complete Absolute Saint realm. Although Lu Ming was able to suppress Luo Pokong, who was in the initial Absolute Saint realm, when he was only a great saint, and his combat strength was amazing, Luo Xiang is not Luo Pokong. That's right. Even the king body has different strengths. Luo Cangqiong's combat power is extremely terrifying, and his law of deprivation is extremely powerful. Even if it's not as powerful as the 10 strongest laws, It's still one of the top few among the King Path laws. The Son of Chaos cannot be measured with common sense. This battle is hard to say. The surrounding spectators were all guessing who would win, but no one could say for sure. Some people thought that Luo Xiang was stronger. After all, Luo Cangqiong's cultivation was 2 levels higher, and the law of deprivation was very terrifying. His combat strength must be above Lu Ming's. However, some people deduced that Lu Ming might not be weaker than Luo Xiang based on his previous battle results. In the blink of an eye, the two had exchanged dozens of moves, and neither of them had a clear winner. The Blade of Deprivation. Luo Xiang did not continue to deprive the energy between heaven and earth. Instead, he formed a huge saber with the law of deprivation and slashed it at Lu Ming. Go! With a single thought, Lu Ming gathered the holy weapons together. The qi of combat weapons burst forth and blasted toward Luo Xiang. However, when it collided with Luo Cangqiong's saber, his expression changed slightly. This was because he felt that there was a terrifying power of deprivation in Luo Cangqiong's saber. It was going to deprive the combat weapon qi, and even the spiritual consciousness attached to Lu Ming's holy weapon. Even the spirituality of the holy weapon itself was going to be deprived and turned into scrap iron. After taking away the energy from Lu Ming's saint weapon, Luo Cangqiong's saber was much more powerful. With a shake, all the saint weapons were knocked back. Bush, bush, bush. More than 200 holy weapons gathered behind Lu Ming, forming a pair of huge wings. The qi of the holy weapons gathered on the combat sword in Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming took a step in the air and charged at Luo Xiang, his sword slashing out. Boom! The combat sword collided with Luo Cangqiong's combat blade. Strip him of his power. Luo Xiang operated the law of deprivation, trying to deprive Lu Ming of his power of law and even his saint energy. However, the next moment, Luo Cangqiong's expression changed drastically. His body trembled and he couldn't help but retreat several thousand meters in the void. Can you take away the laws of chaos? Lu Ming said coldly as he continued to charge at Luo Xiang. Just now, he had covered the sword with a layer of chaotic law. The chaos law was one of the 10 supreme laws. Although the law of deprivation was domineering, it could not deprive the chaos law. The blade of deprivation. Luo Cangqiong's face was gloomy. He waved his hands and kept forming 9 sabers. They rushed toward Lu Ming from different directions. Lu Ming simply put away all his holy weapons and used the prison-suppressing heaven technique to resist. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming threw 9 punches in a row and the 9 shadows of the prison-suppressing steels appeared, clashing with the 9 blades of deprivation. Strip! Strip! Luo Xiang shouted and wanted to strip Lu Ming of his saint energy. However, the prison-suppressing heavenly technique was reinforced by the laws of chaos, and he could not strip it away. Moreover, the power of the prison-suppressing heavenly art was very strange. Lu Ming had a feeling that even without the chaos law, the other party would not be able to strip the power of the prison-suppressing heavenly art. The prison-suppressing steel's shadow suppressed the heaven and earth, knocking Luo Cangqiong's 9 blades of deprivation away. Luo Cangqiong's nomological laws have been restrained. The law of chaos is the king of all laws. The law of deprivation can't affect it at all. The advantage of the law of deprivation can't be exerted at all. Luo Xiang is in danger in this battle. Some people were discussing and expressing their opinions. Luo Cangqiong's law of deprivation was extremely overbearing. It could deprive everything, even other laws. An ordinary king body would be restricted by Luo Cangqiong's deprivation law. However, against Lu Ming, Luo Cangqiong's law of deprivation could not exert its advantage at all. If I can't take it away from you, then I'll use absolute power to crush you and take away your divine seal. Luo Xiang waved his hand, and the 9 blades of deprivation collapsed. Then, Luo Xiang formed a seal with his palm and turned it into a big seal. This huge seal was pitch black, and when it appeared in the sky, endless heaven and earth energy poured into it. The huge seal emitted a terrifying aura. Chapter 1904, Chapter 1904. Where do you get your confidence from? Chapter 1904. Where do you get your confidence from? The divine seal of deprivation was Luo Cangqiong's superpower. It could deprive all the energy in the world, even the power of other laws. It could be gathered together to form a terrible attack. All the energy around the deprivation divine seal seemed to have been deprived, forming an empty space. Zzzzzzz. Various types of energy gathered on the divine seal of deprivation. With an ear-piercing sound, it turned into the size of a mountain and blasted toward Lu Ming. Die! Luo Xiang shouted with a thick killing intent. Since he could not take away Lu Ming's chaos laws, he would use absolute power to suppress Lu Ming. His sacred art had already reached 90% maturity, and its might was terrifying. Furthermore, it was a magical power formed by stripping laws, and its power far exceeded ordinary laws. He was very confident in his sacred art. At his age, it was rare to be able to cultivate a sacred art to 90%. So what if Lu Ming's chaos laws were powerful? Under the situation where the mastery of the divine power was far lower than his, he would still be crushed. What a terrifying superpower technique. I'm afraid Luo Xiang has already cultivated it to 90%. To be able to cultivate a technique to 90% completion at such a young age, he's truly a peerless genius. His rank as 10th on the Saint King rankings is well-deserved. As soon as Luo Xiang used his superpower, many Heaven's Pride experts were shocked. More people looked serious as they felt the powerful pressure. Chaos Finger. Lu Ming's expression did not change. The laws of chaos burst forth and he pointed his finger. A finger, incomparably huge and surrounded by the color of chaos, struck at the divine seal of deprivation. Boom. And NBSP, the divine seal of deprivation, and the chaos finger of tribulation clashed in the air, creating a massive shockwave. And NBSP hoo-hoo. The terrifying energy swept out in all directions. Some of the weaker cultivators couldn't even stand still and were forced to retreat. The divine seal of deprivation and the chaotic finger of tribulation were locked in a stalemate. Strip! Luo Xiang let out a long roar and circulated all the power in his body. The law of deprivation burst out crazily. It deprived the energy of heaven and earth and strengthened the power of the divine seal of deprivation. Luo Xiang, is this all your power? You're nothing more than this. Lu Ming sneered. The laws of chaos circulated wildly, tangling with the saint energy and surging toward the chaos finger of tribulation. Boom. And NBSP, the primal chaos tribulation finger trembled, its power growing even stronger. The terrifying power caused the divine seal of deprivation to tremble. Luo Cangqiong's expression changed drastically. He felt that the divine seal of deprivation could not hold on any longer. How was this possible? His divine seal of deprivation had already reached 90% completion. Furthermore, it was a divine ability condensed from the law of deprivation. How could Lu Ming's divine ability be stronger than his? Lu Ming had just made a breakthrough to the Saint Realm, and he was cultivating the chaos laws. How could he be as good as him in terms of the mastery of superpower? Not only him, but the people around him also found it hard to believe. Luo Cangqiong's superpower technique was so terrifying, but in the confrontation of superpower technique, Luo Xiang was at a disadvantage. Lu Ming's power was beyond everyone's imagination. Luo Xiang, I really can't figure out where your confidence comes from. With your strength, you're still acting so high and mighty. Lu Ming continued, and the power of the chaos finger of tribulation erupted. Kacha! Bang! The divine seal of deprivation cracked and exploded with a bang. Luo Xiang groaned and retreated madly, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Although Luo Cangqiong's superpower had reached 90%, Lu Ming's chaotic finger of tribulation had also reached 90%. For magical powers of the same level, unless they were also in the top 10 nomological laws, they were invincible. Many people were shocked. Luo Xiang was injured and he was no match for Lu Ming. Lu Ming stepped on the air and approached Luo Xiang. His voice continued, "Didn't you want to cripple me? Come on, this bit of strength is not enough. Having said that, Lu Ming pointed his finger again. A chaotic finger of tribulation shot toward Luo Xiang. Luo Cangqiong's face turned ghastly pale. He roared and launched the divine seal of deprivation again. However, he was injured and it was even more difficult for him to resist Lu Ming's attack. In an instant, the divine seal of deprivation was destroyed. Under the attack of the chaotic finger of tribulation, Luo Xiang screamed in pain and was sent flying more than 10,000 meters away. He vomited blood. His injuries were even more serious. Not far away, Luo Pokong and the other talents of the Daluo Heaven sect were pale. Even Luo Xiang was no match for Lu Ming. They wanted to help but did not dare to step forward. They were afraid that they would be crushed by Lu Ming. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming did not stop. He stepped on the void and walked toward Luo Xiang. Lu Ming, it'll make you die without a burial place sooner or later. I mean what I say. Luo Xiang roared. His eyes were filled with crazy killing intent. Rely on you, or rely on the power behind you. That's right, trash like you can only rely on the power behind you. Lu Ming sneered, full of sarcasm. In other words, Luo Xiang was no match for Lu Ming with his own strength. He had to rely on the power behind him. Also, you've forgotten one thing. Now that the power behind you is no longer here, I have the advantage. You shouldn't have threatened me. Lu Ming said coldly. He did not hide his killing intent at all. He took a step forward and flew towards Luo Xiang like lightning. Kill, die! Lu Ming shouted and activated his divine sword technique. Two pitch-black sword lights shot out from his eyes and rushed toward Luo Xiang. At the same time, he pointed with his right hand. The terrifying finger of primal chaos tribulation crushed toward Luo Xiang. Lu Ming is going to kill Luo Xiang? How audacious! He's simply lawless. Many people gasped. No killing was allowed in the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. This was the rule set by the great emperor. But now, Lu Ming's killing intent was unconcealed. His eyes were cold and he showed no mercy. He clearly wanted to kill Luo Xiang. Luo Xiang was said to be lawless and reckless, but he did not dare to disobey the orders of the great emperor. However, Lu Ming wanted to kill Luo Xiang in the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. This was the real lawless. You dare? Luo Xiang bellowed. He did not expect that Lu Ming would dare to kill him here. He fought back but was undoubtedly sent flying by Lu Ming once again. Half of his body was almost shattered. His aura was weak and he was severely injured. Die, die! Lu Ming shouted coldly and launched another finger of tribulation. You! Luo Cangqiong's eyes finally revealed a look of fear. Lu Ming had gone mad. He actually wanted to kill him. Was he not afraid of being punished by the great emperor? He wanted to die together with him. He retreated frantically, but he could not escape Lu Ming's lock. The terrifying aura of the finger of calamity of chaos enveloped him firmly. No help! Luo Xiang roared in fear. He was completely different from his previous arrogant look. At that moment, a palm print cut through the sky and crashed toward Lu Ming's finger of tribulation at an alarming speed. With a boom, the chaos finger of tribulation exploded and the remaining power of the palm print continued to blast toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. He cast the prison-suppressing heavenly art and punched out with all his might. Chapter 1905, Chapter 1905. The Star River Takes Action. Chapter 1905. The Star River Takes Action. Lu Ming cast the prison-suppressing heavenly art and punched with all his might. The illusionary image of the prison-suppressing steel appeared and blocked in front of him. However, when the palm print came, the prison-suppressing steel's shadow exploded. Lu Ming's body was sent flying back tens of thousands of meters before he stopped in the air, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. A young man with snow-white skin and long black hair came to Luo Xiang. The Star River! Lu Ming's pupils constricted. Many people were shocked. It was Heng Xinghe, the number 1 on the Saint King ranking, who had sent Lu Ming flying and injured him with one move. Was he going to make a move against Lu Ming? Brother Heng, Luo Xiang was overjoyed. At the same time, he stuffed pills into his mouth and started to heal his wounds. You want to interfere? Lu Ming stared at the galaxy. Luo Xiang is the great emperor's grandson. How can he be humiliated by you? Said the Hengxing River. Lu Ming sneered. According to the Eternal Star River, could it be that the grandson of the great emperor could bully others and others could not resist or suppress him? It was laughable. At that moment, Xing Chen continued, furthermore, I'm looking for you for another reason. You were the one who pulled out the Celestial Emperor's sword, right? That belongs to the Heng family. Now hand it over to me. Lu Ming squinted his eyes slightly. As expected, the galaxy had taken action because of this matter. The hearts of the surrounding paragons trembled. It turned out that the true purpose of the Xingxing River's attack was to obtain the Celestial Emperor's sword. Saving Luo Xiang was just a passing act. The news that Lu Ming had pulled out the Celestial Thearch sword had long caused an uproar in the Heavenly Emperor city. Now that Lu Ming had returned, the Heng family was indeed looking for him. How should Lu Ming face it? Should he hand it over or not? Everyone's gaze was on Lu Ming. Legend has it that the sword was left behind by the Heavenly Emperor. However, it's only a legend and might not be true. You said that the sword belongs to the Heng family, but do you have any evidence? Perhaps it was left behind by some other unparalleled expert. Lu Ming responded. Although it was said that the sword was the Heavenly Emperor's sword and was left behind by the Heavenly Emperor who founded Heavenly Emperor City, it was only a legend. Could the Heng family produce any evidence? Xinghe placed his hands behind his back and a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. Everyone in Heavenly Emperor City knows that the sword was left behind by the Heavenly Emperor, and the Heng family is the descendant of the Heavenly Emperor. Why do we need to prove this? Since you are the descendant of the Celestial Emperor, why can't you pull out that sword? Lu Ming's voice was sonorous and powerful, spreading throughout the entire venue. Xing Chen's face darkened instantly. Lu Ming was mocking him for not being able to pull out the Celestial Emperor's sword. I will pull out the Celestial Emperor's sword sooner or later. Xing he said coldly. He, could it be that drawing the sword is related to cultivation? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Many people's eyes flickered. Lu Ming was mocking the galaxy. Everyone knew that pulling out the Celestial Emperor's sword had nothing to do with one's cultivation. There was once a martial emperor who could not even pull it out by 1 foot, but there was someone who had just started cultivating who could pull it out 5 feet. He had once pulled the sword out of the Stellar River by 9 feet, but he would probably only be able to pull it out by 9 feet in his entire life. The chances of pulling it out would not increase with the improvement of his cultivation. Yet the galaxy said that he would pull it out sooner or later. Lu Ming's rhetorical question was clearly mocking the galaxy. Xing's expression turned even uglier. The light in his eyes became even sharper, like 2 divine swords. Besides, even if that sword was really left behind by the Celestial Emperor, and the Heng family is the descendant of the Celestial Emperor, why didn't the Celestial Emperor leave the sword to the Heng family? Instead, he stuck it on the platform and sealed it for thousands of years. It's obvious that the Celestial Emperor wants to find someone who can pull out the sword. Only the person who can pull out the sword is qualified to hold the sword. This is what the Celestial Emperor wants. If the Heng family is really the descendant of the Heavenly Emperor, you should respect the Heavenly Emperor's will and not go against the will of your ancestors. Lu Ming continued to speak. His sonorous and powerful voice made many people look thoughtful. That's right. If that sword was really left behind by the Celestial Emperor, why didn't he just leave it to the Heng family? Instead, he stuck it on the platform and let others pull it out. In other words, only the one who pulled it out had the right to wield the Celestial Emperor's sword. This was the true meaning of the Celestial Emperor. You've got a glib tongue and you're twisting the truth. Lu Ming, one didn't want to bully you with your cultivation base. But since you're asking for death today, I'll fulfill your wish. The galaxy shouted and took a step forward. Boom. A terrifying aura bloomed from his body. A mysterious and terrifying law surrounded his body. It was one of the 10 ultimate maxims, the Eternal Maxim. Eternal, eternal, eternal. The eternal law was similar to Huang Ling's law of unperishable flame, but its power was much stronger than the unperishable flame. The eternal law not only gave the user an extremely strong life force, but it also had terrifying offensive power. Boom. Xingxing River took a step forward and approached Lu Ming rapidly. Then, he struck out with his palm and a palm print blasted toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's pupils constricted and he felt a terrifying pressure. Xing Chen's cultivation was too strong, and the power of his palm had the power to destroy the world. Chaos Finger! Lu Ming let out a long roar and circulated his cultivation to the extreme. He then pointed out a Chaos Tribulation Finger that was at 90% maturity. At the same time, his body lit up with spots of light. More than 200 holy weapons flew out and hovered around Lu Ming, forming a defensive force. Boom. And NBSP, the primal Chaos Finger of Tribulation, collided with the palm print of the Star River. Bang. The 90% completed Finger of Tribulation of Chaos did not even manage to block a few attacks before it exploded. The terrifying power surged toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming continued to punch out, and at the same time, more than 200 saint weapons blocked in front of him. However, when the palm print came, Lu Ming's body trembled. The 200 saint weapons buzzed, and his body was sent flying far away. Lu Ming was no match for the Hengxing River. The difference in their cultivation levels was too great. They are both children of God, but Xing Chen's cultivation level is much higher. Lu Ming is no match for him at all. That's natural. As children of God, they usually fight at the same level. If there's a difference in cultivation, there's no point in fighting. I'm afraid Lu Ming won't be able to keep the Celestial Emperor's sword today. Some people in the surroundings sighed. Although Lu Ming's combat strength was strong, Xing Chen was the eternal sun. His combat strength was not weak either. With a much higher cultivation, Lu Ming was no match for him. Lu Ming, hand over the Celestial Emperor's sword and he'll spare your life. With his hands behind his back, the Star River stepped toward Lu Ming with an invincible aura. Boom. The Star River took a step forward. A huge foot descended from the sky and stomped toward Lu Ming. Don't even think about hurting the young master. Qiu Yue. A voice sounded and a figure rushed into the sky. It was Qiu Yue. At this moment, Qiu Yue's glabella glowed, and the monarch weapon, the yin-yang wheel, appeared and struck at the giant foot. At the same time, a phoenix's cry was heard. Huang Ling also rushed into the sky. She was bathed in the unperishable flame, almost turning into a phoenix. At the same time, a pair of phoenix wings flapped out from her back and attacked the giant foot. Chapter 1906, Chapter 1906, 6 Princes and 1 Son versus the Eternal. Chapter 1906, 6 Princes and 1 Son versus the Eternal, not good. Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. He didn't expect Qiu Yue and Feng Ling to suddenly rush out. With Qiu Yue and Feng Ling's combat strength, even with monarch weapons, they were no match for the Star River. As expected, Qiu Yue and Feng Ling's bodies trembled as the giant foot landed. They groaned and flew back, landing beside Lu Ming. Their faces were pale and blood was flowing out of their mouths. Qiu Yue, Feng Ling, are you guys all right? Lu Ming asked worriedly. Young master, it's fine. One want to fight alongside you. Qiu Yue wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She stood beside Lu Ming with a determined look in her eyes. On the other side, Huang Ling didn't speak, but the imperishable flame on her body burned even more fiercely. Hee, how can you stop me with just 2 girls? Xing Chen sneered and continued to walk forward. The aura on his body became more and more terrifying. I'm the one who's cursing. A burly figure appeared beside Huang Ling. It was desolate power. The muscles on his body bulged as he circulated his laws. He wore a pair of pitch-black gloves on his hands, which were also sovereign weapons. Buzz. Another figure flashed by. Long Chen appeared beside Qiu Yue. His arms were bulging, and his aura was terrifying. Qiu Yue, Feng Ling, Long Chen, Huang Li, and Lu Ming 4 king physiques and 1 son of chaos stood side by side. All of them were at the initial success stage of the absolute saint realm. Their auras combined to resist the aura of the eternal star river. Add us in. Behind them, the other elites of the desolate race, as well as Qiu Yue and company, also wanted to step forward. Don't come up. Lu Ming waved his hand and asked the desolate land and the rest to stop. When facing an opponent like the Stellar River, numbers did not mean anything. If one's combat power was insufficient, it would be useless no matter how many people they had. You want to bully me with your numbers? Do you think we don't have people? Another genius of the Heng family shouted and stepped forward. The other geniuses of the Heng family also followed. All of you back off. You don't need to interfere in this matter. Xingchen waved his hand and said to the other geniuses of the Heng family. He was a proud person. With his cultivation, he did nor need the help of others to deal with Lu Ming and the others. Il's gaze swept across Lu Ming's group of 5 and he said indifferently, "You think that you can contend with me with just the 5 of you? How naive." Around them, the others also sighed. The lineup of Lu Ming's team could be said to be luxurious. The 4 king bodies and the son of chaos had all reached the absolute saint realm. However, they were facing the eternal son, Heng Xinghe, who was ranked first on the saint king rankings. No one had any objections. He was publicly acknowledged as the strongest expert of the younger generation in Yuan Mountain. Even the Death Blade, the son of death, was unable to shake the position of the galaxy. Although Lu Ming's team of 5 was grand, their cultivation was weaker. Could they really fight against the Eternal Star River? What if him included? At this time, a deep voice rang out. A tall and slender figure stepped out from the crowd. It's Ouyang Wuxia. Someone recognized the person. Ouyang Wuxia came to Lu Ming's side and a powerful aura burst out from his body. Absolute Saint. Obviously, Ouyang Wuxia had also reached the Absolute Saint realm. Then let's add little sister. At this time, another voice sounded. A graceful figure stepped through the void and landed beside Lu Ming and the rest. Luo Tianyi. Ouyang Wuxia and Luo Tianyi both helped Lu Ming. Are they familiar with him? 6 king physiques and 1 son of chaos. This lineup is truly astonishing. Many people gasped and found it hard to calm down. Luo Tianyi and Ouyang Wuxia were actually familiar with Lu Ming. They attacked at this time and wanted to fight against the Star River with Lu Ming and the others. Very good, very good. Then I'll see how strong you are. Xingchen's eyes were filled with battle intent. He took a step forward and the void space under his feet trembled. Heavenly illusion. Luo Tianyi shouted. Her eyes turned into 2 black vortexes. She cast the sky illusion technique and enveloped the Eternal Star River, trying to make the Eternal Star River fall into an illusion. At this time, Luo Tianyi's cultivation was revealed. She had reached the Absolute Saint realm and seemed to have reached the limit of the Absolute Saint realm. She was not far from the peak of the Absolute Saint realm. As expected, Xing's body trembled slightly and he stopped. The moment Luo Tianyi made her move, Lu Ming, Qiu Yue, Huang Ling, Huang Li, Long Chen, and Ouyang Wuxia also made their moves. 6 terrifying superpowers exploded at the same time and blasted towards the Star River. The shockwaves created by the 6 of them were earth-shaking and shook people's minds. A mere illusion can't stop me. Xing Chen's indifferent voice rang out. His eyes were as bright as the stars. 2 terrifying sword lights burst out from his eyes and slashed at the void. Luo Tianyi cried out. Her body trembled and she retreated. Her face turned pale and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her illusion had been broken by the galaxy and suffered a backlash, causing her to be injured. At the same time, a sword light condensed in Xing Chen's hand and he slashed out. Buzz. This sword radiance was like a fairy from beyond the heavens. It cut through the void and turned into eternity. It was unparalleled and breathtaking. The sword radiance slashed across and the attacks of Lu Ming and the other 5 were all shattered in the air. Not good, retreat. Lu Ming shouted. The 6 of them retreated rapidly to avoid the aftermath of the sword light. So strong. Lu Ming's eyes were solemn. The combat power of the galaxy was indeed terrifying and unrivaled. The main reason was that their cultivation level was too low, far inferior to that of the eternal Star River. What's the use of having so many people? The galaxy's palm clenched into a fist and the eternal law condensed into a sword beam, pressing toward Lu Ming and the rest. Lu Ming's glabella glowed and the Tai Chi formation disc floated out. Qiu Yue and the others also took out their monarch weapons Chaos Finger. This time, Lu Ming took the lead in attacking. He used all his might to launch a chaotic finger of tribulation. At the same time, he moved and rushed toward the galaxy at top speed. Countless runes filled his left hand and formed a sealing force that spread toward the galaxy. At the same time, the Tai Chi Yin and Yang pattern appeared on the Tai Chi formation disc and turned into two yin-yang fish swords, slashing toward the Star River. The series of attacks was like a storm. Even an ordinary absolute saint in the perfection stage would be killed by Lu Ming's wave of attacks. At the same time as Lu Ming launched his attack, the others also launched their attacks. It's both real and illusionary, die. Luo Xiang shouted. Butterflies appeared in the sky, flapping their wings and flying toward the Star River. These butterflies were formed by an illusion. They could be real or fake, and their power was astonishing. The attacks of Qiu Yue and the others also headed towards the galaxy. What a terrifying attack! The surrounding geniuses were all shocked. With so many people joining forces, no one else was confident that they could stop them, not even the geniuses who were ranked high on the Saint King ranking. Small tricks. Xing Chen's expression did not change. Lai slashed out the sword gleam in his hand. In an instant, 9 sword gleams slashed toward Lu Ming and the others. 3 of the sword gleams slashed toward Lu Ming. The other 7 people each had 1 Dao. Chapter 1907, Chapter 1907, Chapter 1907, Death Blade Attacks. Chapter 1907, Chapter 1907 Death Blade Attacks and NBSP. The Primal Chaos Tribulation Finger was the first to be cut apart. Then the yin-yang fish sword and the sealing power of the array Dao laws were also broken one by one. Luo Xiang, Qiu Yue, and the others' attacks were the same. The sword light slashed, and everyone retreated quickly. So strong. The hearts of the surrounding people trembled. The galaxy was too powerful. Even when Lu Ming and the other 7 experts joined forces, they were still no match for it. The cultivation of Xing River is at least at the peak of the absolute saint realm. With the eternal body, his combat power is too strong. Long Chen said to the others. That was indeed the case. Their cultivation levels were too much weaker, and they were simply no match for him. He was the eternal sun, an invincible existence at the same level as them. Not to mention, his cultivation base was much higher than theirs. Lu Ming, hand over the Celestial Emperor's sword. You're not qualified to wield it, said Xing Chen coldly. Xinghe, your cultivation level is just slightly higher. If we were to fight at the same level, I would still defeat you. Lu Ming said. Defeat me? Hee, Lu Ming, let me tell you, even if you have mastered the laws of chaos, you are no match for me in a battle of the same level. However, you don't have to provoke me into fighting you at the same level. Having a high cultivation is also a kind of strength. As Xing River spoke, he stepped forward. A terrifying sword will burst out of his body, piercing through the sky. The sword power spread out in all directions, forming a terrifying pressure. He had overwhelming abilities. Why did he have to fight with Lu Ming at the same level? This kind of goading had no effect on him. Lu Ming, since you don't want to hand over the Celestial Emperor's sword, I'll have to take it myself. Xing Chen said coldly. He raised the sword light in his hand high and his aura became stronger and stronger. However, at this moment, a transparent bubble suddenly appeared on the galaxy and enveloped him. Spacetime law. Xing's expression changed and he shouted in anger. Do it. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He knew that bubbles had made a move. Moreover, from the fluctuations of the spacetime law, it was extremely powerful. Clearly, bubbles had also broken through to the absolute saint realm. Once again, Lu Ming and the other 7 joined forces and launched a terrifying attack. Break! A terrifying sword radiance burst forth from the body of the Star River, breaking the transparent bubble in one go. However, the surrounding space kept on rippling and distorting like water waves, trying to trap the Star River in the void. At the same time, the power of time also acted on the galaxy, causing his movements to slow down. Xing's expression finally changed a little. The space-time law was also one of the 10 strongest laws. It had endless changes and was best at trapping enemies. With the space-time law in coordination with Lu Ming and the rest, they would be able to unleash their abilities to a greater extent. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming's group's attack arrived. It looked like the galaxy was about to be drowned in it. Boom! At this moment, an even more powerful and terrifying aura burst out from the body of the eternal Star River. A terrifying divine light burst out and the space-time law that enveloped his body collapsed instantly. The attacks of Lu Ming and the others were also crushed by the light. It's the eternal light. Also, Xing River's cultivation level is in the great circle of the absolute saint stage. Around them, many people shouted, "Is this the true cultivation level of the galaxy?" Lu Ming and the rest looked extremely solemn. In the battle just now, Xinghe had not used his full strength at all. His cultivation had already reached the perfected absolute saint realm. How terrifying was he at this age? As long as his eternal law was perfected and he reached the perfection realm, he would be able to step into the Emperor-to-be realm and start to break through to the martial Emperor realm. There were not many people who could reach the martial Emperor realm before the age of 50, and they could be compared to the ancient mighty figures. A figure flashed and bubbles appeared on Lu Ming's shoulder. That person is so strong. The bubbles can't trap him. Chirp chirp. Very good, you're not bad. You're able to force me to use my full strength. Then, you'll have to suffer my wrath. Xing Chen spoke with a cold voice, revealing a cold killing intent. A real combat sword appeared in his hand. It was a monarch weapon, and it soared Qi sword into the sky. At that moment, Xing Chen's cultivation in the great circle of the absolute saint realm was completely unleashed. His aura was truly shocking. It's over. Lu Ming and the rest are finished. Although they are strong, they are no match for the galaxy. Indeed, but Lu Ming's lineup is too terrifying. There's actually someone who has mastered the space-time law. How shocking will they be when they grow up? Will the eternal Star River kill them and get rid of them here? It's hard to say. Today's scene had far exceeded everyone's expectations, making them so nervous that they found it hard to breathe. In the beginning, Luo Xiang came to find trouble with Lu Ming but was defeated by him. After that, the Xing River made their move and the number of experts on Lu Ming's side continued to increase. Up until now, there were already 6 king physiques and 2 sons of God. What kind of luxurious lineup was this? This made many of the powerful heaven's favorites look very serious. If these people's cultivation were to increase, who would be their match? Damn it, I hope the galaxy can kill these people. Luo Xiang was also shocked. He had never expected that there would be so many terrifying geniuses gathered around Lu Ming. Swish! He took a step forward and his figures suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, a terrifying sword light slashed toward Lu Ming and the others. The hearts of Lu Ming and the rest thumped rapidly. They could sense a terrifying danger from the sword light. Let's join hands. Lu Ming shouted. They could only block this attack by gathering all their strength. The Dian elixir furnace flew out from between Lu Ming's eyebrows. In his dantian, the 2 saint hearts were working at full force. Majestic saint power poured into the Dian elixir furnace, making it the size of a mountain. However, just as Lu Ming and the rest were about to go all out and fight, a pitch-black saber light cut through the void in the distance and slashed violently. This blade light was filled with the aura of death, as if it wanted to kill all the living beings in the world. Buzz! The sword light and the saber light collided heavily and exploded. The terrifying sword Qi and saber light swept in all directions. Buzz! A figure flashed. It was a young man in a black robe. He stepped forward and appeared in front of the Star River. He was holding a saber in his arms, and his body was filled with a strong aura of death. It's the Death Blade. The Death Blade actually attacked the galaxy? Could it be that the Death Blade is also familiar with Lu Ming and the rest? Many people were shocked to see this young man. The Death Blade, the son of death, had also attacked the galaxy. Death Blade, you're going to help Lu Ming and the rest too? Xing's eyes narrowed slightly, and a sharp glint flashed through them. No, no. The Death Blade shook his head. The reason I attacked was because I didn't like you. These words made many people speechless. The Death Blade attacked because he didn't like the galaxy? Lu Ming's eyes flickered and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Lu Ming was a gold-tier inheritor of the Hunyuan sect while the Death Blade was a silver-tier inheritor. Naturally, he would not attack just because he did not like the Eternal Star River. Chapter 1908, Chapter 1908, Chapter 1908, Draw. Chapter 1908, Chapter 1908 Draw. However, the Death Blade was a proud man. He was the son of death. He would not admit it. He had to listen to Lu Ming's orders now. Since the Death Blade did not mention it, Lu Ming naturally would not say it either. Death Blade, it's still too early for you to stop me with your current cultivation, said Xingqiang coldly. Death Blade's cultivation was at the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm, while he was in the perfected Absolute Saint Realm. The Death Blade was no match for him. How would we know if we don't fight? The Death Blade said, and the death energy around him became even thicker. If you want to fight, I'll grant you your wish. Xingqiang shouted coldly. The eternal divine light became more and more brilliant. The peerless sword radiance was incomparably sharp. It was flickering and could erupt into a terrifying attack at any time. Stellar River, our battle isn't over yet. Lu Ming took a step forward. At this moment, his black hair and eyes turned blood red, and a bone-chilling murderous intent emanated from his body. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to have turned into a god of death. This was the power of the third bloodline. It had been a long time since Lu Ming had used the power of the third bloodline. The power of the third bloodline was too strange, and Lu Ming had been using it less and less. But today he had no choice but to use it. After borrowing the power of the third bloodline, Lu Ming's aura rose sharply. After a few steps, Lu Ming stood side by side with the Death Blade. Hit this guy. Chirp chirp. Pow pow mumbled. She strode forward with her small feet and followed Lu Ming. As her figure walked past, the void distorted like water ripples. It was as if her body was not here but in another space-time. In addition, Qiu Yue, Luo Xiang, and the others also stepped forward, exuding a shocking aura. Kill! The Blade of Death was the first to attack. The Blade of Death slashed toward the Star River. Wherever the blade light passed, the world became silent. It was deathly still. Boom! Lu Ming was the second to make a move. He lifted the Dian Elixir furnace, and a majestic force continuously surged into the furnace, smashing it toward the galaxy. Then Bubbles, Qiu Yue, and the rest attacked at the same time. The attack this time was truly shocking. Today, I'll let you all understand what it means to be the strongest. The eternal Star River howled and the sword beams kept slashing out. Hundreds of sword beams were slashing toward Lu Ming and the rest. The Death Blade's Blade of Death kept shaking and more blade lights appeared. He managed to block a small part of the sword light. The Dian Elixir furnace in Lu Ming's hand was as huge as a mountain. Every time it fell, a large area of sword radiance was destroyed. Bubbles, Qiu Yue, and the rest worked together to block the remaining sword light. A terrifying battle erupted. The 10 geniuses fought with all their might. This entire region was filled with terrifying rumbling sounds. The entire Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy was shocked. However, after Lu Ming used his third bloodline and the Death Blade joined in, they could finally fight against the Eternal Star River and not be at a disadvantage. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of moves, but there was still no clear winner. Xingqiang unleashed his terrifying combat strength to the extreme, but he could not do anything to Lu Ming and the rest. The advantage of the galaxy was cultivation. His cultivation was on the higher side. On the other hand, Lu Ming's group had more people. The combination of various different laws was extremely powerful. Swallow! In the midst of the battle, Lu Ming opened the lid of the Dian elixir furnace. A powerful devouring force erupted from the furnace, trying to swallow the Star River. The eternal Star River howled and eternal divine light burst forth, tearing apart the pill furnace's devouring force. However, the next moment, it was enveloped by the bubble's space-time law and its body froze. The Death Blade's blade of death slashed over and almost hit the eternal Star River. He dodged it by a hair's breadth and broke through the attacks of Qiu Yue and the others at the same time. He slashed out a few terrifying sword lights at Qiu Yue, Feng Ling and the others. However, the bubble space-time law enveloped Qiu Yue and the rest. Their bodies trembled and they dodged the sword radiance of the Xingxing River. Bubble's space-time law had great support abilities in a battle. Furthermore, its attack power was also very terrifying, making it impossible to guard against. As time passed, the battle became even more intense. On the battlefield, all kinds of dazzling lights burst out, colliding with each other and causing continuous rumbles. After about 100 moves, there was still no clear winner. Boom! Heng Xinghe, Lu Ming, and the Death Blade collided with each other and their bodies flew far away. His face was particularly gloomy. Today's matter seemed to be out of his control. He was only dealing with one Lu Ming, but he was besieged by so many people. Every one of them was a terrifying genius. Lu Ming, I'm telling you, the Heng family is determined to get the Celestial Emperor's sword. You can't protect it with just your people, said Xingchen coldly. That's right. The Heng family must obtain the Celestial Emperor's sword. As the voice of the Xingxing River faded, another voice rang out from outside the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. Following that, a suffocating pressure spread out from that direction. Then, the crowd saw 3 old men walking in the air. The 3 elders were surrounded by a divine light. Many people's pupils contracted. This was the world god light, which meant that the 3 elders were all true emperor-level experts. The 3 elders stood in the air, surrounded by the world's divine light. They were like 3 gods, and a terrifying pressure constantly spread out. All the geniuses present felt like a mountain was pressing down on them. Elder! Xingchen cupped his fists at the 3 old men. Lu Ming, hand over the Celestial Emperor's sword to us. It's the Celestial Emperor's sword. You're not qualified to control it. The elder in the middle spoke and looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt a strong pressure on his body, and he could not help but step back. If the younger one can't do it, then the older one will? This is indeed the style of a great power. Lu Ming spoke with a hint of mockery. That's right. You true emperors want to meddle in the affairs of the younger generation. It's too embarrassing. At this moment, a voice came from the depths of the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. As the voice faded, a few figures appeared in the void. These figures were all surrounded by world divine light and were all at the true emperor level. This was a teacher from the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. Many of the teachers in the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy didn't come from any major powers. Most of them were lone wolves or lived in seclusion. In the end, they were invited by the 3 great emperors to become teachers of the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy and manage it together. The expressions of the Heng family's true emperors turned ugly. Initially, they had asked the Star River to take the Celestial Emperor's sword from Lu Ming's hands. However, they did not expect that the Star River would not succeed. They had no choice but to step in. They had also thought that the teachers of the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy would definitely interfere in this matter. This is the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. You guys can go ahead. A teacher from the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy directly asked him to leave. The Celestial Emperor's sword, we must take it away. A true emperor from the Heng clan spoke. The Celestial Emperor's sword was pulled out by Lu Ming, so it naturally belongs to him. You guys don't have the ability to pull it out, but you want to gain something for nothing. Isn't that ridiculous? To think that you guys call yourselves the descendants of the Celestial Emperor. An old man said in disdain, not giving the Heng family any face at all. Chapter 1909, Chapter 1909. The Great Emperor made his move. Chapter 1909. The Great Emperor made his move. The Heng family's true emperors had dark expressions. If it was someone from any other power who dared to speak to them like this, they would have destroyed him. However, the other party was a teacher of the Yuan Mountain Saint Academy, which was founded by 3 great emperors. Although the Heng family was powerful, they did not dare to go against the Yuan Mountain Saint Academy. The eyes of the Heng family's true emperors turned and they started to discuss this matter. After a while, a true emperor from the Heng clan said, "Lu Ming, you can keep the celestial emperor's sword, but you must hand over the cultivation technique in the sword to the Heng family." A sharp glint flashed across Xing Chen's eyes. He had once declared that the celestial Thearch's sword would be his personal sword. Now, he was letting Lu Ming stay. This made him very unhappy. The eyes of the teachers from the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy flickered. It was obvious that the Heng family had given in. They looked at Lu Ming and one of them said, "Lu Ming, what do you think? There's no cultivation technique in the sword. How am one supposed to hand it over?" Lu Ming said. After he pulled out the Celestial Emperor's sword, he did not notice any abnormalities at all. It was just like an ordinary stone sword. It only appeared in the sword tomb of its own accord and saved Lu Ming once. Moreover, it also absorbed a large amount of sword source. "Lu Ming, don't push your luck. The Heng family has already given in. If you're too greedy, you'll only be digging your own grave." "Xing," he shouted coldly. The eyes of the Heng family's true emperors also flashed with cold light. In their opinion, they had already given in, but Lu Ming was insatiable and was not even willing to hand over the Celestial Thearch's sword technique. "Lu Ming, the cultivation technique in the Celestial Emperor's sword is very important to the Heng family," he said. "That's right. Young people should know when to stop. You are very talented. It would be a pity if you die halfway." The few true emperors from the Heng family spoke one after another. Their threat was obvious. "I said, there is no cultivation technique in the sword." Lu Ming repeated. "You still dare to deny it?" One of the Heng family's true emperors shouted. It was like a thunderclap. The sound of rolling thunder formed a terrifying storm that pressed toward Lu Ming. A teacher from the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy frowned. He took a step forward and a wave of power rushed out, destroying the thunderous sound of the other party. "The true emperor has made his move. He's gone too far." The teacher from the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy frowned and looked at Lu Ming. "Lu Ming, you really didn't get any cultivation technique from the sword?" "No, after one got that sword, there was nothing unusual about it. It was just like an ordinary stone sword." Lu Ming said. "You're lying. There are records in the Heng family's ancient books that the Celestial Emperor's sword has cultivation techniques left behind by the Celestial Emperor. How can it not be there?" A true emperor from the Heng clan shouted. "It looks like that sword really doesn't belong to the Heng family. Or perhaps, the Heng family isn't the descendant of the Celestial Emperor at all." Lu Ming sneered. "How dare you insult my Heng family? Kill without mercy." The Heng clan's true emperor was enraged, and a terrifying aura erupted from him as he stepped forward. The Heng family had always been proud of being the descendants of the Heavenly Emperor. Now that Lu Ming actually said that the Heng family was not the descendant of the Heavenly Emperor, it was the greatest insult to the Heng family. If he didn't kill them, it would be hard to establish his prestige. "Enough!" At this time, an old voice came from the depths of the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy. This voice was extremely gentle to the geniuses of the Yuan Mountain's Sacred Academy. However, to the true emperors of the Heng clan, it was like thunder. The Heng clan's true emperor's body trembled as he retreated frantically. His expression changed drastically, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "Great Emperor!" The Heng clan's true emperor said in shock. "It's Emperor Formless." When Lu Ming and the others heard this, they immediately knew that it was the Great Emperor Notionless. When the Great Emperor Notionless had lectured them earlier, they had naturally recognized his voice. This matter had actually drawn the attention of Emperor Formless. This is the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy. You guys can leave. Emperor Formless' voice rang out once more. Although he didn't use any harsh words, it still gave off a supreme dignity and unquestionable authority. The three true emperors from the Hung clan had ugly expressions. But this was the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, and since Emperor Luo Xiang had spoken, how could they not retreat? A true emperor might be high and mighty in the eyes of other cultivators, but in front of a great emperor, they were like babies, trembling in fear. Luo Xiang. At this moment, outside the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, an old voice came from an unknown distance. Hearing this voice, the three true emperors of the Hung clan were overjoyed. They couldn't help but shout, "Forefather!" Many people were shocked. The three true emperors of the Heng clan addressed him as Old Ancestor, and since he dared to call Emperor Formless by his name, there was only one possibility: he was also a great emperor. There had always been rumors that the Heng family had a great emperor. It seemed like it was true. Luo Xiang, the Celestial Emperor's sword, is related to an important legacy technique of the Heng family. Are you really going to interfere? Outside the Sacred Institute, the voice rang out again. No matter what the reason is, since this is the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy and Lu Ming is a disciple of the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, one will protect him. If it were any other disciple of the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, I would do the same. If someone touches the Eternal Star River in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, I will do the same. Emperor Formless' voice was firm and unquestionable. As long as they were in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy and were disciples of the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, he would protect them no matter who they were. He. The emperor of the Heng family sneered and said, "Luo Xiang, you and one haven't seen each other for many years. I don't know how much progress you've made. Why don't we exchange some pointers?" "That's what I was thinking. One also want to see how much you've improved." Emperor Formless retorted. The hearts of many trembled. The two great sovereigns were about to fight. This was a rare event. Boom. Boom. From the direction of the Heng family and the depths of the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, a terrifying pressure spread out at the same time. Then two rays of light flashed and rushed into the sky. Wherever the light passed, the space would crack open and two figures would rush into the void crack. Boom. Then, a terrifying vibration came out of the spatial crack. The entire sky seemed to be shaking crazily. A heavy pressure came from the sky, making people feel that the world was about to collapse and be destroyed. The great emperors were fighting in the void. If the great emperors fought directly in Heavenly Emperor City, the world would be turned upside down. Heavenly Emperor City would suffer a destructive disaster and countless people would be affected. Boom. Boom. In the void, there was a constant rumble, and the space fluctuated like water. Then, a series of ferocious spatial cracks appeared in the void, like a spider web, densely covering the entire void. How terrifying! Many people felt their hearts beat faster and their muscles tighten. They were extremely nervous. It was too terrifying. Even though they were fighting in the void, the scene was still earth-shaking. Everyone had a feeling that a great disaster was coming. A great emperor's little world could give birth to living beings and control great Daos. It was simply too powerful. In front of it, true emperors were as weak as babies. In this era where there were no heavenly emperors, great emperors were the peak existences of the world and no one could defeat them. Every person's appearance would attract the attention of the world. Chapter 1910, Chapter 1910, Chapter 1910, Chaos. Chapter 1910, Chapter 1910 Chaos. The battle between the great emperors didn't last for long. After a few minutes, the fluctuations in the void suddenly stopped. The spatial cracks also disappeared. He stopped. Who? Was it the great emperor of the Heng clan or Emperor Formless? Withdraw from the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy and send people to guard the area outside the academy. If Lu Ming goes out, capture him immediately. The voice of the emperor came from the Heng family. The Heng clan was going to leave the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy. Many people's eyes flashed. Could it be that the emperor of the Heng family had been defeated? It was very possible. If the Heng clan emperor won, he wouldn't leave the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy so easily. Yes. The three true emperors from the Heng clan acknowledged the order and cast a cold glance at Lu Ming. Then, they stepped out and left the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. Xing Chen's eyes were filled with unwillingness. At this moment, a figure appeared in the sky. It was Emperor Formless. "Greetings, great Emperor." Everyone bowed and paid their respects to Emperor Formless. "Now, I have an announcement to make." Emperor Formless' eyes were no longer gentle. Instead, they were filled with a sharp light. Anyone who met his gaze would feel their hearts race. From tomorrow onwards, the rules of the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy will change. From now on, there will be no prohibition of killing in the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. In other words, there will be no rules in the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. Emperor Formless' voice rang out. The hearts of many trembled. From tomorrow onwards, the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy would no longer prohibit killing. There would no longer be any rules. This would definitely cause a huge change in the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. In the past, killing was forbidden in the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. It was forbidden to cripple the cultivation of others. If one wanted to determine life and death, they had to fight on the life and death battle stage. If they didn't step onto the life and death battle stage, they would be safe in the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. At the very least, they wouldn't have to worry about their lives. But all of this would change. In the future, the teachers of the Sacred Institute won't care about your affairs. Of course, all of this is the internal affairs of the Sacred Institute. If any external forces interfere, we will strike them with lightning. Also, I've placed 4 sets of formation discs in the holy battlefield. Each formation disc can cover an area of 100 miles. Only martial sovereigns can break it. After saying this, Emperor Formless' figure blurred like a phantom and then disappeared without a trace. Little guys, take care. The teachers of the Sacred Academy glanced at the crowd and left one after another, disappearing into the depths of the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. As soon as the teachers of the Saint Academy left, the atmosphere became extremely heavy. Everyone looked at each other, their eyes filled with solemnness and wariness. From tomorrow onwards, there would be no ban on killing. Those who had grudges with each other would look at each other with cold, killing intent. Luo Xiang, Heng Xinghe, and the rest swept their gazes over Lu Ming and the others. They did not even bother to conceal their undisguised killing intent. "Lu Ming, let's wait and see. Let's go," Xing Chen said coldly. Then, his body flickered and he was the first to leave. After the Star River left, the death blade turned into a blade light and disappeared. This made the eyes of some powerful heaven's favorites light up. It seemed that the death blade was not on Lu Ming's side. Just like what the death blade had said, he attacked Lu Ming purely because he found the galaxy unpleasant to the eye. Some of the more powerful heaven's favorites let out a long sigh of relief. If the death blade was also in Lu Ming's group, then the strength of Lu Ming's group was too shocking. If they could fight against the Eternal Star River when they joined forces, they would be almost invincible in the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy. However, without the death blade, the strength of Lu Ming's group was greatly reduced. That death blade guy left without even saying goodbye. Huang Ling muttered unhappily. Lu Ming smiled slightly and did not mind. As the son of death, Death Blade naturally had his pride. He was not convinced by Lu Ming at all. He most likely wanted to wait for 20 years to challenge Lu Ming and replace him as the Golden Inheritor. However, Lu Ming was confident that he would definitely make the Death Blade convinced within 20 years. "Let's go back," Lu Ming said. He, Qiu Yue, Feng Ling, Long Chen, and the rest stepped into the air and left. After that, the others also left. From tomorrow onwards, the Yuan Mountains Sacred Academy would no longer prohibit killing. They naturally had to make early preparations. In Lu Ming's residence, everyone gathered in a courtyard to discuss some matters. From tomorrow on, the situation of the Sacred Institute will definitely change greatly. How should we face it? Someone asked. It's best for us to gather together and concentrate our strength to avoid being defeated one by one. Lu Ming said. Then he looked at Ouyang Wuxia and Luo Tianyi and said, Ouyang Tianyi, bring all the people you can bring here. Well, gather together. All right. Ouyang Wuxia and Luo Tianyi nodded and agreed without hesitation. Other than Feng Ling and Long Qin, the others were shocked. Luo Tianyi and Ouyang Wuxia seemed to be very obedient to Lu Ming, which shocked them. During this period of time, we'd better not go to those cultivation places to cultivate. Well, make plans after the situation has stabilized. Lu Ming suggested. Everyone nodded. This was the best choice now. This mountain peak was very large, and everyone chose to stay in a courtyard. A day passed in the blink of an eye. From the second day onwards, the atmosphere of the entire Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy became tense and everyone was on guard. It has already been almost a year since the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy convened. Many people had grudges with each other. In the past, they couldn't kill each other. At most, they could teach each other a lesson to vent their anger. But now, things were different. As expected, the massacre began a few days later. Some Heaven's favorites were killed on the spot. This also opened the prologue of chaos in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy. The tragic battle began. Boom. Not far from the mountain where Lu Ming and the rest lived, a shocking fluctuation burst out on a mountain peak. Two figures rushed out from the mountain peak and engaged in a fierce battle. However, the battle didn't last for long. A terrifying sword light flashed by, and a young Heaven's favorite was cut in half, dying here. The other elite took the storage ring and turned into a beam of sword light, disappearing. I wonder how many Heaven's favorites will die. A few figures stood in the air and watched. They were Lu Ming, Huang Ling, Luo Tianyi, and the others. Huang Ling sighed slightly. Perhaps this is the great emperor's strategy. Only by facing danger at all times can one tap into one's potential faster and more thoroughly, and break into a higher realm. Luo Tianyi said. The few of them nodded. However, the price to pay for this method was huge. I wonder why the great emperors are holding a meeting at the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy to nurture so many geniuses. Lu Ming opened his mouth and asked. The others were silent. This was actually what everyone had in mind. Why did the emperors spend so much effort to gather so many geniuses and nurture them? Most of the Heaven's favorites here came from the major forces. If they were successful in the future, they would definitely return to their forces. What good would that do for the emperors? Chapter 1911, Chapter 1911. Fighting for a cultivation place. Chapter 1911. Fighting for a cultivation place in the blink of an eye. Half a month had passed. As time passed, the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy became even more chaotic. Every day there would be battles and killings. Every day there would be geniuses dying. However, Lu Ming and the rest did not have any trouble. Lu Ming and the rest had many geniuses. They were very terrifying when they gathered together. Naturally, no one would have any ideas about them for the time being. As time passed, many people began to gather and form groups. They joined forces to fight against the strong enemy. Even so, there were still powerful Heaven's favorites who killed their way into a certain group and killed them all. The atmosphere in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy was extremely depressing. Under such circumstances, there were some geniuses who left the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy. However, only a small number of people left. The various cultivation grounds of the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy were too attractive. Furthermore, there were great emperors giving Tao lectures. Where could he find such cultivation conditions? In the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, although it was dangerous, one's improvement was the fastest. If he left the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, his cultivation speed would definitely not be able to keep up with his cultivation in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy. Everyone was a Heaven's Pride expert. Once the gap between them widened, it would be difficult to catch up. The path of cultivation was like going against the current. If you didn't advance, you would fall behind. Once you fell behind, it was likely that you would never be able to catch up with the other Heaven's Pride experts in the future. Even your own achievements would be affected. In the Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy, he might be able to continuously tap on his potential and break through. His future achievements were hard to predict. But after leaving, that might not be the case. Therefore, only a small number of people left. Most of them stayed. Huang Kong was a genius of the Phoenix Palace. He had once fought with Feng Ling for the heart of the Wutong tree, but they had made up. On this day, he met up with the Phoenix Palace. A few geniuses of the Divine Elephant sect came to the Divine Power Purgatory Valley and planned to cultivate their divine powers there. However, they were stopped outside the valley. The Divine Purgatory Valley has been fully occupied by the Sky Saber Alliance. No one else is allowed to enter. Outside the Sacred Art Purgatory Valley, a few young men stopped Huang Kong and the rest. Sky Blade Alliance? You've reserved it? Huang Kong and the others were stunned. That's right. Now, get lost. One of the young men on the other side berated him arrogantly. How dare you? The Purgatory Valley was created by the great emperor of the Sacred Academy. Anyone who enters the Sacred Academy can go in and cultivate. What right do you have to occupy it and not allow others to enter? An elite of the Divine Elephant sect was furious. That's right, you should be the ones to get lost. A disciple of Phoenix Palace berated. Since they don't want to get lost, then behead them. A cold voice came from the Purgatory Valley. A young man in a long golden robe with a cold face stepped out with a few other young men. The faces of Huang Kong and the others turned ugly. If you want to fight, we're not afraid. Let's go, said Huang Kong. He wanted to retreat and report this to Lu Ming and the others. Did one say you could leave? Do it. Kill them all. The golden robe young man was overbearing. A golden saber appeared in his hand and he slashed at Huang Kong and the others. This person's cultivation was very strong, at the peak of the Supreme Saint realm. As for Huang Kong and the others, he had the highest cultivation. He was only a Supreme Saint. Not good, retreat, kill them, Huang Kong shouted. He had not expected the other party to be so overbearing. He had attacked them directly to kill them. However, the other party had more people. Their figures flashed and they surrounded them. Pucci. The golden-robed young man's saber fell and a disciple of Phoenix Palace was killed. Huang Kong's eyes turned red and he shouted, "You've killed a disciple of Phoenix Palace. Lu Ming and the others will never let you off." What? A disciple of the Phoenix Palace? The golden-robed youth and the others were shocked. He had not expected the other party to be a disciple of Phoenix Palace. The Phoenix Palace represented Lu Ming and the group of experts on his side. At the thought of Lu Ming and the rest's combat strength, the golden-robed young man broke out in a cold sweat. But now that he had already killed one of the other party's people, it was already impossible to ease the tension. Kill them all, don't let a single one escape. The gold-robed youth roared. Since they couldn't ease the tension, they would kill them all. This way, no one would know that they were the ones behind it. The terrifying attacks continued to attack Huang Kong and the others. Huang Kong and the others were few in number and their cultivation was weaker than Fang's. They could not resist at all and were killed one by one. Soon, only Huang Kong was left. Kill. The golden-robed young man's blade light continued to slash at Huang Kong. Soon, a long wound appeared on Huang Kong's body, and his body was almost cut in half. If not for the fact that he had the Phoenix battle body, the Phoenix's ability to rise from the ashes, and his strong life force, he would not have been able to fight anymore. A Phoenix's cry was heard. A pair of Phoenix wings appeared on Huang Kong's back. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and the blood landed on the Phoenix wings, causing the flames on the wings to burn and emit a bright light. Huang Kong rushed out of the encirclement despite his serious injuries and flew toward the place where Lu Ming and the others were gathered. Not good chase. The golden-robed young man and the others' expressions changed drastically. They chased after Huang Kong, but he had used a secret skill that would put his life on the line. His speed was astonishing, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. The gold-robed youth's face was ashen. If Lu Ming and the rest knew that Huang Kong had escaped, what would they do? His eyes flashed with fear as he said, "Quickly report to the Alliance Master that Lu Ming and the others are here to fight for the divine power Purgatory Valley. On the mountain where Lu Ming and the others lived, Lu Ming, Huang Ling, and the others were discussing some matters when someone suddenly rushed in to report. Not good, one of our people has been killed. The person who made the report was a genius of the Phoenix Palace. His face was filled with anger. What? Lu Ming and the others' expressions changed. In a flash, they appeared outside the courtyard. They saw Huang Kong sitting cross-legged on the ground, covered in phoenix flames and blood. Huang Ling's face darkened. With a wave of her hand, the undying flame enveloped Huang Kong. With the help of the undying flame, Huang Kong's injuries recovered quickly. After a while, he was fully recovered. Huang Kong, what's going on? Huang Ling asked. Our people have been killed. Huang Kong immediately told him what had happened. Sky Blade Alliance, you're courting death. Huang Ling's body exploded with cold killing intent. It seems that some people have already begun to fight for a cultivation place. Gather our people and let's go. Lu Ming shouted. Not long after, Lu Ming, Qiu Yue, Huang Ling, Luo Xiang, Long Chen, Desolate Li, and the rest made their way towards the sacred art, Purgatory Valley. He had killed their people, so he must take revenge. When Lu Ming and the rest arrived at the divine Purgatory Valley, there were already hundreds of people gathered outside. They killed our people without any explanation. Huang Kong pointed at the golden-robed young man in the crowd. Come out and die. Lu Ming's eyes were like lightning as he looked at the golden-robed young man. He shouted, causing the golden-robed young man's face to turn pale. Chapter 1912. Chapter 1912, Life for Life. Chapter 1912. Chapter 1912 Life for Life. Lu Ming, what's the matter that made you so angry? A burly young man stepped out. He was holding a saber, and his eyes were as sharp as blades. Wei Tiandao. Huang Ling muttered. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. He had heard of Wei Tiandao, the fourth-ranked Saint King. He had a terrifying king body and an unfathomable cultivation base. He was even stronger than Luo Xiang. It seemed that the Sky Blade Alliance was established by Wei Tiandao. Your people killed our people for no reason. A life for a life, they must die. Lu Ming said coldly. They attacked us first and we were forced to fight back. The golden-robed youth called out. Nonsense, we came to the Mystic Ability Purgatory Valley to cultivate, but you stopped us and said that the Mystic Ability Purgatory Valley was already occupied by you. You attacked us and killed our people without any explanation. If one didn't risk my life to break out, one would have died. Huang Kong roared. You're slandering me. The golden-robed youth said. Lu Ming, it seems like there's a misunderstanding here. How about this? I'll give you half of the usage rights of the Purgatory Valley and we'll let this matter go. What do you think? Wei Tiandao said. You killed our people and you think you can let it go so easily? Is there something wrong with your brain? Lu Ming berated him directly, a cold, murderous intent flashing in his eyes. Wei Tiandao's face darkened. He was ranked 4th on the Saint King ranking, but Lu Ming did not give him any face at all. This made him feel murderous. However, when he glanced at Luo Xiang, Qiu Yue, and Huang Ling, he suppressed the killing intent in his heart. Lu Ming, what do you want? Wei Tiandao said. It's very simple. All those who attacked us will pay with their lives. Also, the Purgatory Valley will be ours from now on. Lu Ming said coldly. The golden-robed young man's expression changed and he shouted, Alliance Master, don't agree to it. We're only doing this for the Alliance. Wei Tiandao's expression was dark as he said, Lu Ming, your condition is too much. Too much? Don't you have to pay the price for killing our people? Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming, one suggests that we minimize the issue. Once the two sides start a war, it's not good for either of us. This time, you don't have the death blade to help you. Wei Tiandao spoke with a hint of threat. In other words, without the death blade's help, you won't gain any benefits from fighting me. Hee, you really know how to put gold on your face. Why do one need the help of the blade of death to deal with you? Since you want to fight, then let's fight. With that, Lu Ming took a step forward. A violent aura burst forth and pressed down on Wei Tiandao. At the same time, Luo Xiang, Qiu Yue, and the others also released their auras. Wei Tiandao's body exploded with a terrifying blade light that pierced through the sky. Absolute Saint in the Great Circle. Wei Tiandao's cultivation had actually reached the Absolute Saint in the Great Circle. No wonder he was ranked 4th on the Saint King ranking. The people behind Wei Tiandao also released their auras. 2 of them were also extremely terrifying. They actually also had king physiques. The terrifying auras of the 2 sides clashed in the air, constantly colliding. Kill! Lu Ming suddenly shouted and pointed his finger. And NBSP, a chaos finger of tribulation, formed and shot toward Wei Tiandao. Wei Tiandao unsheathed his saber and was about to attack when a transparent bubble suddenly appeared around him, enveloping him. His body froze. Break! Break! Wei Tiandao roared and unleashed a dazzling saber light, trying to break the bubble's space-time laws. However, he was not Heng Xinghe. Heng Xinghe had an eternal body, with eternal divine light and the eternal laws, which could easily break the space-time laws of the bubble. He only had a king physique. Although his cultivation level was similar to that of the Hengxing River, there was a huge difference in combat strength. How could he break through the space-time laws in a short time? Heavenly illusion, let's go! Luo Xiang said and cast the sky illusion law. Wei Tiandao was immediately trapped in an illusion. Break, 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 break. Wei Tiandao roared as saber light burst forth from his body, trying to break through the illusion and space-time laws. At this moment, Lu Ming's attack had already arrived. Boom! And NBSP, the primal chaos tribulation finger, landed on Wei Tiandao's body. Even though Wei Tiandao used a blade light to block it, his body still trembled and he was forced back, spitting out a mouthful of blood. However, as soon as he stepped back, another transparent bubble enveloped him. Then, Luo Xiang's illusion shook his soul again. Although Luo Xiang's cultivation was at the absolute saint late stage, her soul was very strong, far beyond her own realm. Coupled with her sky illusion law, she had a huge influence on Wei Tiandao. Despite Wei Tiandao's strength, it was difficult for him to display it in such a short time. Buzz! Lu Ming took a step forward and the Dian elixir furnace appeared in his palm. It grew in size rapidly and smashed toward Wei Tiandao. Bang! Wei Tiandao was smashed into a daze. His body crashed heavily onto the ground and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. The other members of the Sky Blade Alliance were shocked. The golden-robed young man and the others who had attacked him earlier all turned pale. Wait, stop! Wei Tiandao roared. What do you want to say? Lu Ming stood high in the sky and looked at Wei Tiandao coldly. Wei Tiandao's eyes were filled with shock. It was only now that he truly understood how terrifying Lu Ming and the rest were when they joined forces. Back then, when Lu Ming and the rest joined forces, they were suppressed by the galaxy. It was not that Lu Ming and the rest were not strong, but the galaxy was too strong. Wei Tiandao only realized how terrifying Lu Ming and the others were after they exchanged blows. With so many people working together, he couldn't use his full strength at all and could only take the beating. Furthermore, there were still other king physiques that had yet to make a move. If they really started a battle, they would lose without a doubt. Lu Ming, I agree to your conditions. Wei Tiandao said helplessly. He felt extremely humiliated, but there was nothing he could do in this situation. No, President, you have to save us, you have to save us. The golden-robed young man screamed in fear. If Wei Tiandao did not save them, they would be dead for sure. He has to bear the consequences of his own actions. Let's go! Wei Tiandao shouted and turned to leave. The other members of the Sky Saber Alliance looked at the golden-robed young man and his group with pity. Of all people to offend, they had to offend Lu Ming and his group of fiends. After that, the other members of the Sky Blade Alliance also stepped into the air and left. Don't! The golden-robed young man and the others chased after the Sky Blade Alliance members in a frenzy. However, Long Chen's figure suddenly appeared in front of them. His eyes were cold as he threw a punch. Bang! The golden-robed young man screamed as his body was torn apart. The rest of the people had even lower cultivation levels, and were all killed by Long Chen in a few moves. The people who had attacked him before were all killed. The divine ability, Purgatory Valley, was also under Lu Ming and the rest's control. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.